Good afternoon. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx Webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing can watch on YouTube. Participants who registered in advance will connect to the hearing by phone or with a compatible electronic device and have the option of participating by video or audio only. Participants will be muted automatically upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Please mute your devices until you are called upon to speak. Those participating by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when their item is heard. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time, and at all other times your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use the share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. My name is Nancy Oman, and I will be chairing this hearing. Panel members participating via WebEx Webinar who can be seen and heard are Larry Clay and Peter Reed. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request by email. Please include your name, address, and an email address. Committee of Adjustment and Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please speak slowly and clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first with a presentation of the application, and then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation, and when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion, and the application will be taken into committee for a decision. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Staff and panel members, are there any interest to declare this afternoon? No? Any files to be closed in this time slot?
Hello, Madam Chair. No, there are no files to be closed.
Okay, and I believe there's a deferral for 21.
Yes, there are 2 deferral requests for this afternoon, which is item number 21, 51 Ascot Avenue, and item 28, 40 Glen Edith Place.
Okay, let me just see. Okay, we have speakers on 28, so I'm going to go in order, I think. All right, so the first item is item number 21, 51 Ascot Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a deferral request from the agent, and correspondence in support from number 77. Okay, do I have the agent on the line? No. Okay, panel members, we're going to hold this down. The agents, can I do the deferral? There are no speakers, Madam Deputy. Okay. All right, panel members, the agent has, Ms. Evangelista, requested a deferral. I don't show any speakers, so staff says we can actually deal with this one. So this is just to defer the item. Mr. Reid.
I'm happy to move deferral. Looking at the variances, they were for a laneway suite, and this is not on a laneway, so I understand they need to revise the variances. So I move deferral.
Okay. Do you second, Mr. Clay? All right, so motion to defer moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? This carries unanimously. All right, item number 22, 16 West Lynn Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. 7 photographs and descriptions of comparable floor space index approvals from the agent. And we have 4 more photographs of, again, comparable gross floor area approvals from the agent. Correspondence in support from number 36. And we have 13 form letters in support, and they include both adjacent neighbors at number 14 and 18. And I do not show any opposition speakers on this one. Do I have the agent on the line?
Yes, you do. Hello?
Hi,
Yes, you do.
can you speak up a little bit and just identify yourself for the record?
Oh, sorry. I am Tyler Walker. I am the applicant and agent for the clients, the owners of 16 Westland.
Okay. I don't think we need a presentation, but the members might have some questions. We have one variance before us on this one. Any questions? Okay, Mr. Walker, we don't have any questions. We're ready to make a decision on this. Anything you want to add that's not in the submissions?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we're in committee. Panel members? Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. First off, just commend the applicant for getting everybody on site and doing widespread pre-consultation. That really helps when we get an application before us that has that kind of support. So kudos to you. This is an application that only has one variance with respect to a modest increase in FSI. I don't think it has any detrimental impact. I think it's a supportable application. It's actually quite an attractive approach to how they're going to do the work on the addition. So I think it's supportable. I'm happy to move a motion to approve with no conditions.
Okay, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. Item number 23, 96 to 100 Osington Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter from the agent. We have previous decisions that affected this particular property, correspondence from a different agent. We have correspondence in support from 124, 113, 96 to 100, 111, 88, 6, 64, 76, and 90, as well as 96 Osington. We have correspondence expressing concern from 65 Argyle Street and opposition from 62 Fennings Street. And I do show a number of speakers. Do we have all the speakers? Two? Who? Okay, that's fine. All right, do I have the agent on the line?
Hello, I'm Christina Glass. I'm the agent for the application and a manager of development for Hallmark, the owner of the property.
Hi, I'm going to need you to do a presentation. There's some opposition speakers, no more than 5 minutes, so I need the clock to start. Just wait for one. Okay, so go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, I do have a presentation if control could be put over, or...
Is there anything you need us to put up on the screen before you start, or?
I did send a presentation in, so I'd like to have that to reference. Thank you.
When was the presentation submitted?
It was submitted yesterday, and I was advised that it had been uploaded to the Application Information Center. I did receive confirmation from the application, from the AppTech, Will, that it was received. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So the property that we're speaking about today is 96-100 Osington Avenue. I have indicated here a number of letters of support as mentioned. Not pictured as a letter of support from the Osington Community Association. I do believe that that was referenced in your introduction there as well, so I just wanted to highlight that. If we could proceed to the next slide, please. This is an existing building, and there are no built form changes contemplated as part of this minor variance. It is technical in nature, and as referenced, there are multiple previous decisions. The building does currently go to the full property line. Next slide. And we can see here the facade of the building fronting onto Osington Avenue. Again, there are no changes proposed to the built form, and many in the neighborhood would be familiar with the lower Osington Theater that used to occupy this building on the second floor. You can see the marquee towards the north end of the site, which is the entrance to that second floor unit. Next slide. So I think some of the community opposition or confusion about the application is stemming from the definitions in the bylaw. So variance number 1 and 2 reference a variety of entertainment and restaurant type uses. So I just wanted to clarify an entertainment place of assembly, as highlighted in red there, is not a nightclub. Additionally, in zoning bylaw 43886, a club is mentioned in this group of uses, and that is referencing a social, cultural, or recreational use. So not a nightclub. Next slide, please. What we're looking for today on paper when you're looking at the variance, that's for this group of uses, is tied to restriction for all properties on Osington. However, we have received a number of previous approvals, including applications in 2017, 2018, and 2019 that approved these exact same variances. So what we're asking for today is incremental to deal with a condition from the Lower Osington Theater's approval in 2018 that tied the approval to their use in particular. So we're asking that no condition be limits the second floor, as well as recognizing some very incremental changes to GFA. Again, no additions or changes, expansion of this use. These are coming from discussions with the zoning examiner and what does and does not count towards gross floor area. Next slide, please. I've just marked here in green the area to be used as the entertainment place of assembly and the ground floor uses to be maintained, as well as the 3 variances. Next slide. And here are the floor plans. So we're seeing the area in green again as the second floor unit with entrances on Osington and an emergency exit out to the laneway, which is sometimes referred to as Tibet Street Lane. And next slide. And here are some photos of the interior of that unit. So when the Lower Osington Theater vacated during the early pandemic stage while everything was closed. We did some work in the unit to clear it. So it has been vacant since that time. It's ready to be leased. And we've had some difficulty finding tenants. So that's why we're looking to get the variance today. I will note that there have been some pop-up events that have occurred in the space, but as you can see, it's completely clear. Next slide, please. Just indicating here a cleaner version of the site plan. So again, you're seeing the entrance from Osington, the emergency exit out to the lane, and 2 existing Juliet balconies, one facing the west and one facing the south. Next slide. Here I've marked out the west or the rear elevation onto the laneway. So there are several openings, one being that existing Juliet balcony for the 2nd floor, the emergency exit, and 2 garage doors. One is used for common area for the building and waste pickup. And the 2nd garage door is associated with Ride Cycle Club, which is a recreation use and part of the total calculation of the GFA. That concludes.
Oh,
Yep.
I was just going to say, I'll give you an extra 30 seconds because it took us a minute to pull up the stuff, but it sounds like you're concluding.
Yes, just wrapping up here that I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Just wanted to mention, Hallmark is a longstanding property owner on the street. We have a number of variances, a number of properties, and we always work towards resolving community concerns. We've done a lot of discussions with the Osington Community Association and have their support. We also have planning support and no conditions that they're recommending on this application. It's important to us to be a good neighbor on the street and to our existing building tenants. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll hold our questions till we hear from the opposition, and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I saw Krista Thompson leave. Did she come back in?
Krista, you've been unmuted.
Krista, are you there? Okay, if not, let's go to whoever the next one is that you have.
Jerry, you've been unmuted.
Jerry, are you there? Jerry Magnoli? Okay.
Carling, you've been unmuted.
Hello, everyone. So I'm not here necessarily to oppose. I'm joining this meeting. This is my first time doing this, so please cut me some slack.
I will, but just before you go any further, can you state your name and address for the record?
Oh, sorry. Yes. So my name is Carling Actum, and I'm the owner of 104 Osington, which is a house 2 doors down from 100 Osington.
Okay, so we'll restart the clock, and you have 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm not going to take 5 minutes, but thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So I guess I wanted to voice my concern. As I mentioned, I'm a resident at 104 Osington and owner. My husband has owned the place since 2006. And we've never had any noise issues when it was the lower Osington Theater. But since it's become sort of that pop-up space, from what I understand, there have been loud sort of one-off events where the music has been blasting through the walls of the house beside us into our home, extremely noisy. I assume there's no proper soundproofing in there at the moment. Hopefully that would change, but that's a big concern to us. And then also just concerned about, again, what type of event venue it would become. And thank you again for clarifying that earlier, that it's not a nightclub. That was sort of our main concern, but we also have a major issue with illegal after hours in the alleys right behind the house and Osington, and just concerned about, depending on what type of venue this would become, that would feed into that issue as well. So that's my concerns. I just wanted to voice them, and that's it. Thank you.
Just before you go, were you speaking on behalf of James as well?
That's my husband and myself. Sorry, he's traveling in Europe right now.
No, because I have him listed here twice, so I just.
I
wanna
know,
make
sorry,
sure
he
that-
flew
no,
last minute,
that's
wasn't
fine.
able to join. Yeah, I'm his wife. Thank
Yeah,
you.
No worries.
Yeah.
Any questions for Carling? Anybody? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, do you have the next?
Chair, I wonder if I could ask, just the sound, I think we're going to hear a lot from
Yep.
folks about the sound.
Yeah.
Just to the last speaker, do you know where the windows or sliding doors or French doors, were they open during that event or were they closed? Do you know?
The noise that we heard, because we're a house, so we're more towards the front of the property. We also own a studio, which is towards the back of the property, which is soundproof. But it was coming through the walls of the home. So it wasn't necessarily we were getting the noise on the alley. We were getting noise through the walls from 100 Osington through the house at 102 into 104, if that makes sense. Like our house is on Osington.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I think, like, I went into the space one night to just see what was going on in there, and it seemed like it's an empty cavernous space right now. So it doesn't seem like it's soundproofed. And it was a very loud sort of party with like a DJ and big speakers. And anyways, when it was at Lower Osington Theatre, we never heard a peep, but these events have been very loud. And so thank you.
Can I just ask you one other question?
Yeah,
The
go for
event,
it.
like, how late did it go?
2 a.m.
2 a.m. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have the next speaker? You have Tatiana and not Lana? Okay.
Lana, you've been unmuted.
Lana, are you there? Okay, try Tatiana.
Tatiana.
Hello.
Hi, is this Tatiana?
Yeah, hi, my name is Tatiana Duden of 65 Argyle Street. Our garage, I believe my partner Jerry is also here. I'm not speaking on his behalf. We're in different physical locations currently, but our house back.
So sorry, Tatiana, just before you continue, I'm gonna have reset the clock. If Jerry is also speaking, can you split the time? I don't think we have him on the line, but okay. So you have 5 minutes, but if Jerry does weigh in, then I need you to split the time between you.
Okay, I believe he is here. I will time myself for 2 minutes, 30 seconds. My concerns echo Carling's comments as well. We hear loud events from that space, whether or not the Juliet balcony door is open or not. Our house faces Tibet Street, like the back of it, that alleyway. And, it's very loud. I understand it's not a nightclub, but if it's a concert hall or any kind of loud establishment, even like a full restaurant, it's a big space. I'm really concerned about the noise that will carry to the houses, especially because it's going to be on the second floor, which is, in my opinion, not a minor variance. Like, that's the whole bylaw, is that you cannot have these places on the second floor because of the noise issues. So that's what I wanted to come here and say. I would like to give Jerry time to speak if he's on the line. Jerry.
Let me check. I'm just checking with staff because they can see who's in the waiting
Okay.
room. So just give me a second.
Last name is Rabba.
Yeah, Jerry Rabba. No, that's the third. We'll go back to him. That's another one on this one. Yeah, okay, I think we found him. So you want to pass it over to him then, or you're?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your input, and we'll switch over to Jerry.
Hello, just confirming that everyone can hear me.
I can hear you, and just to confirm, you're also at 65 Argyle?
That's correct. I'm owner and resident at 65 Argyle, and I also represent two other tenants. There are rental spaces as well at this location.
Okay.
And to echo Carling and Tatiana, yes, since the closing of Lower Osington Theatre, that space, whatever event has been happening there, sanctioned or unsanctioned, has created a lot of noise spillover into that back laneway, especially when those Juliet balcony doors are open, but not exclusively. Sound just seems to radiate because of its exposure to the laneway. There's no obstruction between the rear of that space and many neighboring residential homes. Beyond that, the concern is that Osington Street between Queen Street and Dundas, as we all know, is already quite saturated with spaces for dining and music and bars and restaurants. And if it were to become space in that, anything similar to that, the amount of people that would be drawn to that space and the number of people that are already problematic on the streets late at night, especially on the weekends, would increase greatly. As you can all see, the size of the space is just massive. It covers 3 addresses, yeah, to just comment on that categorization of not being a nightclub, I came across a 2017 report from Toronto's Auditor General identifying that many eating establishments in the city were operating as illegal nightclubs, and it further commented on the difficulty for bylaw officers to enforce or change that in some respect. So even though, yes, technically it's not a nightclub, for all intents and purposes, if it were allowed to entertain crowds of people, serve alcohol, play loud music, it would effectively be the same as a nightclub with respect to the neighborhood. I'd also like to say that the letters of support that were submitted are all from other business owners. So they, in fact, aren't impacted by what happens in the evening and after hours and late at night. It's really us residents of the neighborhood that are affected. So I'd like you to please take that into consideration. And as a final point, I'd just like to say that, we're all aware that Toronto is in a housing crisis at the moment, and all other second stories along Osington are residential. And so why we would not try to have that massive space become several livable residential units, but instead more eating, entertainment, music space that Osington already has way too much of, I don't seem to understand. So that's really all I have to say. I appreciate you letting me speak on this point, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you. Any questions, panel members, for the speaker? Okay, thank you, Jerry. Can you go back to Krista Thompson?
Krista, you've been unmuted.
Krista, are you there? No?
We've tried dialing in twice, and
Okay, so let's move to the, you had Jerry Magnoli before, I thought you mentioned, but see if he's still there.
Jerry, you've been unmuted.
Hi, Jerry, are you there?
Your recording has reached maximum length. If you are satisfied with your...
Okay, so he's not there. Okay, so the other one would be Lana. That's the only other one we had that we weren't sure.
Lana, you've been unmuted.
Hi, Lana, are you there? Okay, all right, so that concludes the speakers. We're unable to reach the other three. And could I have the agent back then, please?
Christina, you've been unmuted.
Thank you.
Hi, Christina, can you please speak to the issues that were raised? In particular, the sound seems to be a big concern.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to respond to that, and thank you for everyone who came out to share their feedback. So as I went through the presentation and showed those interior photos of the unit, it is a clean space right now to allow us flexibility for leasing. So there have been no improvements to the space or a tenant fit out to include any noise mitigation measures. Some of the tenants and events we've had in the space, again, have been short-term pop-ups, like a speaker series, charity events, as well as a retail tenant. So I think that has certainly contributed to these occasional noise matters. I would just express that Hallmark, being a responsible landlord and neighbor, would work with any tenant that would come into the space to do an appropriate fit-out plan and implement noise mitigation methods as necessary. One example of this would be for Ride Cycle Club, which is one of the previous minor variances decisions that was submitted as part of this application. They are a cycling studio and they have a soundproofed room within the same building. So that's just an example of some of the work that we would do, depending on the tenant and what we would deem appropriate. There are two Juliet balconies, the one that faces west, and I understand that that has occasionally been propped open. While we have these short-term pop-up tenancies come in, we have less control operationally, and sometimes we're not advised of any noise issues or complaints until after the fact. So it's just a bit harder for us to manage. So we would work. Again, we did the same thing with Ride Cycle Club to determine an operational plan that would help keep us a good neighbor to those tenants in the buildings as well as the surrounding neighborhoods. I would also just add that in terms of fire egress and life safety, I have consulted with our architect, and we do believe that that Juliet balcony may need to remain. However, through building permit process, we may be able to reduce the openings onto the laneway. I can't confirm that at this point. I would also add at 102 Osington Avenue, so that's a separate property, separate ownership. I understand that there have been some specific complaints about events being occurring in that space along the laneway. So there may be some confusion about what spaces are causing and contributing to some of the noise that the residents have noted in the area. And happy to answer any other questions.
I have one question, which is because one of the speakers mentioned that the noise was at 2 a.m. Would you have a problem if the committee did elect to approve this application to a condition that there be no amplified noise after, let's say, 11 o'clock at night?
Given that we don't have a specific tenant or fit-out plan at this time, I would ask that no condition be imposed. However, if the committee thinks that it is necessary, we are open to that. Again, I would just reinforce that we would work with any tenant coming in to do an appropriate noise mitigation plan and deal with it operationally as needed.
Okay. All right, panel members, do you have any questions? Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. Christine, I do know that Hallmark is a fairly responsible owner, but this is and has many properties along this strip and others. But this strip has been an area where I think the residents that back onto Osington on both sides have experienced lots of issues over the years. So sound is obviously, and particularly when it's a second floor as opposed to the main floor. I mean, sound does carry when it's a little higher. You seem to be, and your client seem to be willing to do something to address that. How could you give us some advice on if we wanted to put a condition that sound attenuation efforts be undertaken? Do you have any advice on how that condition might be constructed?
I am thinking about what an appropriate condition would read like in that instance. Again, what we have done is typically as part of our building permit review prior to any tenant fit out would be reviewing a noise mitigation plan and retaining a noise consultant as we deem appropriate to do that review internally. It's not something that would be required at the building permit stage. So in terms of what mechanism would be most appropriate to write down in that condition, and I'm not sure. I think the no amplified music after 11 p.m. may be the most appropriate wording in that instance.
Would you be comfortable with something like, to condition that you would undertake efforts to implement sound mitigation measures as necessary?
I would certainly be open to that condition. I would also.
Just to interject, Larry, because I'm looking at the Deputy Secretary.
Yeah, I know.
In terms of enforcement, perhaps it could be can it be noted? Rather than a condition that's not enforceable, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, who would it be to the satisfaction of? And the term the term as necessary, that's very open-ended.
Yeah, I totally get that. So maybe it's a comment or something. I do think that the applicant is willing to do that. But I think just to give the residents a little bit of comfort, maybe even just a comment that along those lines, I think would.
Can it go in the notes?
Yeah, sure.
Through you, Madam Chair, we can put it in the minutes as for the record, but it won't be as part of the decision in the notice of decision.
I get that, but if there are violations in the future, at least someone can circle back to look to what the committee's intent was.
Okay, so it can go in the minutes, Mr. Clay.
Sure.
Any other questions, panel members? Mr. Reid?
Thanks, Chair. I think part of the difficulty with this one is there's not a specific use that's being put forward right now, and I think it would be easier if we had that, both in terms of understanding the potential impacts and also creating mitigating solutions. So I'm wondering, in a sense of the applicant, what the rush is, or is there a benefit from your perspective to waiting until you have a specific tenant to get this approval?
Thank you for that question. So through the chair, I would just note that the space has been vacant for quite some time, and we have gone out to a number of groups to review, look at plans. One of the difficulties is when we don't have zoning permissions in place while we're speaking to other groups, we can't get a commitment from any tenants. So that was one of the reasons that we selected to advance the application at this point, so that when we do have a potential group in, we have the zoning in place, and that provides everybody with a level of comfort. It does take a number of months to go from application to getting a hearing. And we've done a number of consultations now with the Osington Community Association and other property owners on the street. I would be comfortable going on the record noting that we acknowledge the note in the minutes from the committee that we would implement noise mitigation methods as required. And I would also just add as well, there have been acknowledgement from people on the call as well through the Osington Community Association that when the building operated as the Lower Osington Theatre, there were no noise complaints or issues. So the intent of this application is to find a very similar tenant to go into that space, although we don't have groups secured at this time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, panel members? Seeing none, okay, let's take it into committee. And I just, I would prefer to see a condition put in that there be no amplified noise after 11 p.m. simply because we don't know who the tenant's going to be. It's, could be an operator who has, I don't know, jazz groups. It could be anything. And I think if I lived in the area, I'd want some assurances that I'm not going to be hearing loud noises, you know, until 2 o'clock in the morning. And I think that's probably the only condition we can put in right now that addresses the neighbors' concerns. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are on it.
I agree. I don't know what else we could do, and I do agree with Larry's point of having just a note for the record regarding noise attenuation.
Got a motion here?
That's just an observation. I think we're on the same page probably, right, Larry? Like, do you have anything else that you'd like to see in a motion?
No, I think that's fine. I do sympathize with the neighbors, not necessarily going forward with what is being proposed, but you know, the violations that they've probably had to endure over the past is probably pretty frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll put forward a motion for approval, subject to a condition that no amplified music or noise, I guess, happen after 11 p.m. And then adding also a note, just for the record, regarding once a tenant is found, that the space be designed with comprehensive noise mitigation construction.
Okay, so that motion is moved by Mr. Reed. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Clay? All in favor? That motion carries. Okay, item number 24, 113 Bristol Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have revised site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 3 photographs of the property. Correspondence in opposition came into the supplemental agenda from 117 Bristol Avenue, as well as someone who didn't provide a name or address. I don't show any opposition speakers. Do I have the agent on the line? And we have one variance before us.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Jonathan Mitskowski.
You're still with us. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually received a call for the first time saying I wasn't in the WebEx meeting, which is nice to know for the future. But that's neither here nor there, Madam Chair.
All righty. I don't think we need a presentation, but panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Benkowski?
No, I'm just going to assume that the adjacent semi is on side.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is our second kick at the can here. This was an original as-built. There's never been any opposition from the immediate neighbor to the north. The proposal before you today has removed essentially 2 meters in length. Again, this was a permit that was issued that the owner just kept building. And that adjacent semi to the north didn't have an opposition to the original application that was before you and has not submitted anything today. The only conversation I had was to the neighbor to the south, and was more some concerns with wind of kind of the state the property had been left in after the OTC was issued. I spoke with them at the first hearing, and I have not heard anything back from them regarding this one. So in terms of the application today, I've never heard anything from the neighbor to the north on the original application that was refused, or the revised one today that removed the length, as well as bringing down the GFA, or FSI, sorry.
Sorry, so this was refused in the past? We don't...
I know, through you, Madam Chair, I was actually just going to prepare what had happened. This was a refusal for an OTC for an increase of length as well as FSI. We are now compliant with the length, and it is just an FSI request that is before you today.
When was that? Do you remember? Because we don't have the background, so I'm just curious.
It would have been... sorry, just bear with me for 1 sec. I believe it was in the summer, sometime around the summertime.
So like 9 months ago or so.
You know, I have it in my notes as August.
Okay.
I guess that's fine. Jonathan, was it refused because of,
Correct.
for the length?
The length, correct. And the FSI was also, we've removed essentially 13 square meters of FSI, which translated to 1.96, 1.93 meters in length. It was actually a staggered building permit that was issued. He just actually built out the other floor in line with the permit that had already been issued.
So what was the FSI then you were requesting?
It would have been, sorry, just let me go back to,
Oh, I think Sabrina's got it. Hold on.
Through you, Madam Chair, I am looking at file number A1038-21TEY, and the floor space index was at 0.85 times the area of the lot, 148.08 square meters.
that's correct.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions, Larry?
No, I'm assuming it was in partly turned down in the past because of opposition from neighbors, which, as Jonathan points out, they're not opposing any longer. So,
Part of that, through you, Madam Chair, correct. And Mr. Reed was vehemently against it also, if I can remember correctly at the previous hearing with the length in the FSI that was being requested.
okay, we're going to make Peter do the motion for this one then.
Okay, you're throwing the sequence off, Larry, but
I don't remember this one, but anyway. But yeah, length usually is a bother for me. Go ahead, Larry. I don't remember.
No, I'm happy to take it off your hands, Peter.
all right. So, hold on. Is there anything you want to add, Jonathan, before we go into committee? Then I think we're ready to make a decision on it.
I think I put my foot in my mouth enough on this one, Madam Chair, that we'll just let a motion happen.
Okay. All right.
Jonathan, next time you come up with one that I refuse, you can pull me out too.
Thank you, Mr. Clay.
So I'm happy. I think this is obviously this is a very minor FSI increase, and the fact that it's been reduced from previous refusals, I think, is a good thing. It sounds like the neighbors don't oppose it any longer. It seems to me to be a reasonable application. I'll move approval with no conditions.
Okay. Are you seconding, Mr. Reed? Okay. So motion to approve, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, item number 2520, Brandon Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevation, and 7 photographs of trees. I only have the agent listed as a speaker, and we have 2 variances before us. Okay, do I have the agent?
Hello, good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Eddie Perez, and designer. We're here on behalf of the owners. As you can see, we have 2 minor variances before you, and I feel they're minor in nature. If you have any questions, I feel free to answer them.
Okay, any questions, panel members? Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. So I'm seeing just from the survey and from the site plan that currently there's almost no soft landscaping. Is that right? And then you're putting in a portion behind the house. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's right now it's all stamped concrete, and we're proposing the green as shown on the portion that we could put green, because the other portion we needed for the vehicles to enter the garage.
Right, I saw that. Okay. And would you be open to the little pathways you have across the green space in the back? Would you be open to having that in permeable pavers?
We're at the back?
Yeah.
You mean the walkway?
The 2 walkway. Yeah, the L-shaped walkway.
The walkway, we can do it, but the rest of it is, like I said, it's all stamped concrete. But with the proposed walkway, yeah, we can.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Perez, we're ready to make a decision. Anything you want to add that isn't in the submission?
No, it's just pretty straightforward. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, we're in committee. Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a reasonable application. The depth variance is minor. The rear yard soft landscaping is a significant number, but I would note that it's a market improvement over what's there. So I would move approval of the application subject to the pathways, the walkways, the newly proposed walkways in the rear yard be built with permeable pavers.
Okay, so that motion is moved by Mr. Reid to approve the application with the new rear walkways having permeable pavers. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Clay, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 26, 205 Heath Street West. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from the agent, a previous decision affecting the subject property. We have a number of TLAB decisions affecting the properties at 34 Morningside Avenue, 114 McPherson Avenue, and 251 Old Forest Hill Road. A list of comparable previous Committee of Adjustment decisions from the agent. We have correspondence from the agent in response to a deferral request from Mr. Brown. We have an arborist and tree protection plan prepared by Lakeshore Tree Services, a geotechnical report prepared by Toronto Inspection Limited, infiltration testing program report prepared by Toronto Inspection Limited, presentation materials and slides from the agent, a storm drainage report prepared by Michael L. Plews from Huson, a staff report from Forestry asking for condition number 2, and one form letter in support from 201 Heath Street. Correspondence in opposition from Robert Brown, the solicitor on behalf of Audrey Loeb, and we have another letter from Terry Mills, another solicitor regarding the owner of 12 Shorncliffe Drive. Okay, I am showing 2 speakers in opposition, and then I'm showing, well, the agent and solicitor. I'm not sure who's speaking.
Good morning, sorry, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Just confirming you can hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah. And just, can I just have your name, please?
Sure, my name is Matthew Lakatos Hayward, last name spelled Lakatos-Hayward. My address is 333 Bay Street, Unit 3400. And I'm counsel to the applicant, the family company of Miss Ann Liu.
Okay, so you're speaking then, because I also have Georgina Myers listed as the agent.
Yes, Madam Chair, for the purposes of the application, she is the agent and I am counsel to the applicant.
Okay, so you'll be doing the speaking then?
Correct.
Okay, so I do have 2 opposition speakers. If I could, we'll reset the clock. Do you need any material pulled up before we start? And then you have 5 minutes.
Yes, please. Can you pull up the presentation materials that have Goodman? It's the Goodman's PowerPoint presentation, please. So I believe that might be presentation materials 2. Okay. And just let me know whenever you're ready to go.
Yeah, we're going to start the clock, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you. If you could just go to the next slide, please. So our client, this is the essentially second kick at the can here. Our client is seeking committee's approval of variances to permit the redevelopment of the property with a new high-quality 2.5-story detached multi-generational home with an integrated garage and replacing existing background features. A short presentation I prepared today is also supplemented by a number of the other covering and supporting materials that I have filed. I'll refer you to those materials. My presentation, I'm going to cover 3 things in the remaining time. I'm going to go over a bit of the neighborhood context, a description of the proposal, I'm going to go over the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I'm going to focus specifically on the variances relating to density, length, and depth. And then I'm going to cover the fact that the proposed home will result in few, if any, impacts. So can I go to the next slide, please? So this is a map of the Forest Hill neighborhood where our client's property is located. The blue shows the geographic neighborhood and the green shows the immediate context. Forest Hill has many examples of 2- and 3-story dwellings, including dwellings with integrated garages and first floors that have an elevated appearance. Neighborhood is evolving with many newly constructed homes proposed in the area. And then I would note for the committee that there is not a significant built form difference between the immediate and broader area, as you will see from some of the photos. Next slide, please. So this just shows the zoning for the property. We are both in an RD zone. Next slide, please. So an excerpt from the survey. Currently on the property is a 2-story dwelling with a swimming pool in the backyard and a number of natural feature trees. Next slide, please. So the drawing on the right shows the front elevation of the property. The somewhat confusing drawing on the left is the proposed site plan. So the hatched area shows the existing building, and the broader gray area shows the proposed dwelling. There are a number of green circles, as you can see, which shows trees that are either on the property proposed for retention or trees that our client is proposing to plant. I would also note that as part of this, our client is proposing a cabana and to replace the existing swimming pool on the property. Next slide, please. So this proposal has a bit of history here. We had previously submitted an application to the Committee of Adjustment. It went through TLAB. We are back before the committee. And you can see that our client has revised its proposal down from what had initially been proposed. The variances that you see before you on the far right column, 3 of them relate to the length and depth of the overall building. There is a variance that is listed there for height, although I would note that that variance actually no longer applies because the OLT has now released its final decision, not only approving the provisions of height in our zones, but also increasing the permissions in this area to 12 meters. So that variance is no longer required, and the density has generally shifted downward. The first floor elevation that is there is a technical variance, and it generally relates to keeping the, allowing for the integrated garage to be implemented. Next slide, please. I'm going to just go through this quickly. I've proposed, there are a number of examples in the community, but I put up 3 examples that are resemble what our client is attempting to do here and show why our client's proposal fits in with the broader neighborhood. So 201 Heath Street West, which is immediately adjacent to our client's property and which has indicated its support, has obtained variances very similar to our client's property. There are 2 other examples in the neighborhood that have received similar variances. Next slide, please. This slide here just shows, focusing in on density, where our client's proposal sits with the community. And you can see here that there are a number of other examples that have received similar approvals for density, length, and depth. And you can see from the bottom chart that of all the variances that have been obtained in the area, 25% have received approval. Just quickly, as I know I'm running out of time, last slide, please.
I was just about to tell you
Yeah.
you're at 5 minutes.
I'll just very quickly conclude that our client has listened to several of the concerns of neighbors and have proposed a tree planting plan and other options to reduce impacts from drainage and maintain as many trees as possible. For those reasons, our client asked the committee to approve these variances and agrees with the imposition of forestry condition 2. Subject to any questions and my right of reply, those are my submissions today. Thank you.
I think we'll wait with questions till we hear from the opposition, and then we'll have you back.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Do you have the first speaker?
Terry, you've been unmuted.
Hi, my name's Terry Mills, and I'm a registered professional planner, not a solicitor. And I've been retained by Audrey Loeb, who resides at 12 Shorncliffe Drive, which is immediately behind 205. And I've previously been retained by the Loebs in the previous application, which was heard by the T-Lab and refused by the T-Lab. I am a bit concerned as to whether we're going to be able to get through this item in the time that is available. And I do point you back to the remarks of Mr. Roberts on the Brûlé application in terms of Bill 23 and its implications on the Committee of Adjustment. I noticed in your general introduction you talked about appeals, and I must say that you may say you're checking with your planning department, but you should check with T-Lab, because I can tell you certainly that T-Lab has been refusing applications for appeals by third parties. Anyway, my letter addresses the covering letter sent in by the applicant solicitor at Goodman's. And I identified certain points in there. One of my concerns is that if you were to take their letter and then use that as the lens by which you're going to consider this application, there are some things that you should be aware of. The first item I raised was they mention in their cover letter that the property is located in a neighborhood that features large 2- and 3-story dwellings with integrated garages and elevated first floors. And this was also mentioned again in terms of the presentation I just heard. And I must say that features is not a planning term at all. And on the other hand, really, if we're going to look at you know, what the character of the neighborhood is, integrated garages with elevated floors above are not part of the prevailing character of the existing physical neighborhood, nor are they most frequent or frequent, and they don't even exist in substantial numbers. And therefore, in my opinion, to say that other than there's one immediately next door, that you know, that item is really a red herring and should not be in any way influence the decision. My point number 2, the covering letter goes on to say this direction is particularly true in the case of density, which an overall quantitative approach can be of little or no consequence. Oh, excuse me. My thing slipped on. Number 2, in the immediate context alone, the proposed home has been designed to resemble the home at 201 Heath Street immediately to the east of the property. Again, resembles is not a planning term, so if we're looking at maintaining the intent and purpose of the official plan, this one doesn't have any relevance at all. But I think as well what's important to notice is there are significant differences between 201 and 205. Not the least of which being that the gross floor area of 201 is, you know, you take the size of that building and add an additional third gross floor area, and you have what they're proposing on 205. And there are other differences. For instance, at 201, they've used a split level ground floor to get the headway for the integral garage. And as well, in terms of length of building, it's actually 3.24 meters less than what they're asking for at 205. Then their third point of reasoning for this being approved is they cite a T-Lab decision in which the T-Lab confirmed that a literal reading and overall quantitative approach to policy 4.15, that's Goodman's words, to which they bolt, has the insidious effect of running contrary to provincial policy that encourages the provision of much needed housing. So they've spliced part of a sentence from a T-Lab decision. But in terms of much needed housing, I doubt that provincial policymakers, which they're saying, you know, that this is running contrary to provincial policy, But this house, being that it's 8,000 square feet, I don't believe was in the mind of the province.
Mr. Mills, you have 5 minutes. Can I ask you to wrap up, please?
Okay, well, I apologize. I will wrap up. Just quickly saying, I think that, quite frankly, the best thing to do would be to actually see if this item could be deferred until my client is back in the country in March. And I do believe that we can probably reach a meeting of minds with the applicant to resolve things so the committee doesn't have to deal with it. Bye now.
Thank you, sir. Panel members, do you have, I think there's a question for you, Mr. Mills. Mr. Clay.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that your client isn't available right now. But all the things you talked about were more general impacts on the neighborhood. Are you able to give us any indication of what this proposal, this proposal would impact your client's property?
Yeah, in terms of my client's property, one of the concerns there is actually the height of the main floor, which dictates the height of the rear platform. And it ends up that they're asking for an additional main floor height of, I believe it's 1.6 meters rather than 1.2. So it would be of great interest to my client to actually have the main floor down at what is the permitted level. And that would straighten out this high deck thing that looks out on their property. My client's lived there for many years, really enjoys their property, and appreciates it as a very large house, et cetera, et cetera. But that would definitely have an impact on them. And in terms of the street at the front, the raised house is out of character with, other than for 201, with the immediate context. And this is sort of a special enclave. It's not like all the rest of the properties to the east, although they, the applicants used a much larger area. Everything from Russell Hill east belonged to was called the Baldwin allotment, whereas this portion of Heath Street west was actually developed quite differently originally, and that's created the character bits.
Okay, so I understand that concern. I'm just looking at the grade changes. So is your client's property above or below or more or less the same?
It's more or less the same. I'm glad you're looking at the survey because the one that's in the presentation set we just saw was stretched much fatter than it really is. So there's no huge difference. It's quite a similar grade level.
Okay,
and
thank
they
you.
definitely use their rear yard very much in their property to the south.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mills. If we can go to the next speaker, please.
Robert, you've been unmuted.
Mr. Brown, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
If you can just identify yourself for the record, please, and then we'll start the clock.
Okay, my name is Robert Brown. I reside at 88 Spadina Road, Suite 212 in the city of Toronto, M5R 2S8.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was involved along with Mr. Mills in the previous application. I've also been asked by the neighbor across the street, Miss Noreen Taylor, to maybe provide some comments. And it really is, I guess there's two issues. One is the bones of the application before us, which still puts it at a well over what I would consider acceptable in meeting the official plan, 4.1.5, et cetera. The other real concern that we have is that Miss Taylor and Miss Loeb were a party and a participant at the T-Lab, yet neither one of them were consulted by the owner of the property before presenting this plan and submitting it to the C of A. So they've had no opportunity to review this. I mean, we found out about it, less than 2 weeks ago, And it really is a disingenuous application as far as I'm concerned on behalf of the applicant, because the two most immediately engaged neighbors were never consulted or never even talked to about, potential redesign of the project. And I concur with Mr. Mills that this application just doesn't fit the context, the immediate context of the neighborhood. Now, Mr. Lakotas Hayward, had his nice drawing, but you have to remember there's a difference in zoning between the west of Russell Hill and east of Russell Hill. Therefore, you really can't compare any of the properties that are to the east of Russell, on the east side or further east on Russell Hill. So really, that's my comment. This project should be deferred. It should be, and the applicant should be encouraged to confer with the neighbors, most directly impacted, which are Miss Loeb and Miss Taylor. And I believe that there could be a meeting of the minds at some point relatively quickly. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Clay has a question for you.
So I'm going to ask the same question I asked previously. I appreciate that. Is it Ms. Taylor?
Ms. Taylor lives on the north side of Heath.
And isn't available. But do you have any? I'm just trying to get a sense of, everyone's concerned, but I haven't really heard what the actual concern is. So, do you have any sense of what issues that Ms.
Yes.
Taylor would be uncomfortable with the current proposal?
It's the street impression of the 205. She's across the street and it's elevated, and it creates a very, it's more than large. It's a really overly large dwelling to look at. And in terms of Miss Loeb, who's on the south side in the rear yard, same problem is that it's the rear deck is too high, and there are issues relative to drainage, which I believe they've tried to address, but we haven't really explored that today. And the fact that Miss Loeb, who is the most directly impacted in terms of this development, is out of the country, has been out of the country since late December, and is not expected to return until mid to late March. And I think it's a disservice to the process to allow this project to go ahead without having an opportunity for the directly impacted neighbors to actually have a sit down with the owner and the designer and see if there can be a meeting of the minds as to what will meet the applicant's needs as well as the needs of the neighbor.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Brown? Okay, thank you, sir. Can I have the solicitor back, please?
Good morning, madam, or good afternoon, madam.
Before you do your rebuttal, can you just confirm that you're deleting variance number 2, which is the height variance from, or do you want, like you said, you don't need it. Are you officially deleting it, or?
I believe it would be our intention to still, I'm in your hands, Madam Chair, on how best to proceed. I believe that the recent changes to 569/2013 to increase the height render this variance meaningless, but I don't know if that's necessarily been reflected yet.
I'll just ask staff, because we had one similar to this morning. Sabrina, can you just weigh in?
Through you, Madam Chair, we're not in a position to make this decision. It's up to the applicant to determine if they're going to be removing variances number 2 and 7. Both are related to the maximum permitted building height of 11 meters. So if they want to leave it in just to be on the cautious side, then we can leave that in.
So up to you. Do you want to leave them in, or do you want to delete them?
I'll leave those in, Madam Chair, for now, just in case. But I would note, in any event, if this project were to be approved, when we go to pull building permits, I would be filing the updated OLT order with that. application.
The other thing, I would like you to please speak to the deferral, if you could. You've heard the two speakers are asking for deferral. I'd just like to know where you stand on deferral request.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I responded by email with respect to this. Our client does not support a deferral for this, and the reasons, Madam Chair, are as follows. So our client submitted its application back in October 2022. Materials have been on Application Information Center since then. The hearing, since it was scheduled, I disagree with Mr. Brown and Mr. Mills that no consultation has occurred. Our client, in addition to the actual notice requirements that are required under the Planning Act, sent out letters and to all residents that were impacted, and specifically sent letters to Ms. Loeb and Ms. Taylor. The letters described the proposal, included a set of plans, and specifically noted that if they had any concerns, she was open to discussing them to reach a path forward. I appreciate that Ms. Loeb was not in the country, but with respect, our client could not have known that. And I don't think it's accurate to describe that our client did not consult at all. In fact, we attempted to. And for those reasons, Madam Chair, and because we have satisfied all the procedural matters set out in the Planning Act, I do not think a deferral is warranted at this time. As they noted, they did participate extensively in the TLAB process, which did result in changes to the proposal and also ensured that our client looked at the specific impacts to their site. I would note that our client looked at options to preserve all trees that abutted Ms. Loeb's property, ensure that drainage concerns were addressed, which is why those drainage reports were put forward. And I'm happy to speak to the other pieces that Mr. Mills and Mr. Brown raised in their presentations.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to address the other two pieces that are two points in my rebuttal submissions. The first is with respect to the elevated first floors piece. As I mentioned, this is a technical variance as a result of upsloping of the driveway and is required to accommodate the garage. As Mr. Mills may be correct that variances have not been granted in the past for this, but I would note that the integrated garage is something that was featured to resemble the properties currently at 201 Heath, 34 Montclair Avenue, 25 Parkwood Avenue, 305 Russell Hill Road, 12 Shorncliffe Avenue, and others. And so for that reason, our client feels that this variance is appropriate and minor in nature. The second point I want to raise is with respect to impacts to Ms. Loeb's property. She had brought up concerns relating to the elevated first floor and potentially overlook. I would note that the rear of her property is sheltered by several trees that our client is proposing to retain on site. I would also note that the deck that our client is proposing is enclosed, and no rear yard setback is actually sought, or a reduction is sought in this case. Our client, if it would please the committee, would be amenable to considering conditions such as putting in frosted glass to help further maintain Ms. Loeb's privacy. But I'm not entirely sure what other, I believe that the overlook concern in that case has been addressed. So subject to any questions you may have, those are my reply submissions. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if the panel have any questions. Mr. Clay, Mr. Reed, any questions?
No, so I just want to confirm so that everyone understands, the proposal that's before us, you went through the variances and how they've changed. So in essence, the current proposal is smaller than what you had previously proposed and what you had amended and taken to TLAB. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. The height has been reduced, the FSI has been reduced, the length depth have been reduced. There is no rear yard or front yard or side yard setback. And now the height, in our client's opinion, is permitted as of right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's take it into committee then.
Chair, I'm happy to start on this one. I appreciate that this is a proposal that has been before this committee in the past and was unsuccessful. But I was impressed that what we have before us is now something which is reduced in scale and scope and conforms basically with the new bylaw for height. When pressed, I was kind of unsatisfied with the responses from council about the impacts on each of the other two properties. I don't think those are dramatic impacts at all. I don't think that this style and size of dwelling is at all out of character with the Forest Hill community. We've seen several examples where it is very similar, including right next door. I appreciate that the applicant has confirmed that the deck off the back, which I thought was an open deck, is actually enclosed, and has further even suggested that they could do frosted glass if there is any overlook concern with the properties in behind. I think the applicant heard some of the concerns from the neighborhood and has adjusted their proposal accordingly. I think this now is a reasonable application given the context and given the neighborhood and the size of the properties in this neighborhood. I think it's supportable, be quite honest with you. I'm struggling with trying to figure out, determine where that real negative impact on the neighbors and the community is, and I don't see it in any significant way. So I think it's supportable.
I'll just jump in quickly. I remember this last time, and I voted against it. I thought that it was much too big and too long. But as Larry said, I think that there have been significant and meaningful changes that have happened. I particularly like that the length and depth really are kept to one story at the rear. I think that stepping down does a lot to minimize the impact of that. So I agree. I think this is a supportable application. I would recommend maybe that we tie it to the two side elevations just to capture that how the house scales down towards the end, towards the rear, and site plan as well.
Does that elevation show the rear deck, Peter?
It does, yeah. There's the east and then the west, and then that coupled with the site plan, I think should capture it.
Okay, so I'm happy to move a motion to that effect, to approve this application, subject to tying it to the two elevations and the site plan as Peter suggested. I'd also like to take the applicant up on their offer to introduce frosted glass into the rear patio.
Okay, and also forestry number 2.
And forestry number 2. I think we heard the applicant chose to retain the variance in question?
Yeah, so as is the application.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion is to approve the application, including forestry number 2, tie it to the side elevations as well as the site plan, and frosted glass on the rear patio. That's moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for your input. The next item is item number 27, 242 Sororan Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, revised site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 7 photographs of trees. We have email correspondence from the assistant planner, and we have forestry asking for condition number 2. and am I missing anything here? I don't think so. And then I believe Councillor Matlow. No, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay, planning is asking for a condition to screen the basement walkout. Okay, and I don't have, I have one person here expressing concern. We have them? Okay. If I could have the agent first, that would be great.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Barry Goldman. I'm the architect and the agent for this application.
Okay, Mr. Goldman, I'm just going to go, if you don't mind, to the person listed as a speaker, the neighbor at 240. It says here they have a concern, so I'm not sure if we need a full presentation or if we can...
Please proceed, by all means.
All right.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Could you just...
Okay, so, yep, my name is Liz Leeson, and with my husband, Wade Leeson, we own the home at the house at 240 Sororan, and we share a mutual drive with 242 Sororan Avenue.
Okay, I show you as having a concern. Could you tell us what your concern is, please?
My concern is with, excuse me, as I previously stated, the mutual driveway, and this is a pretty extensive renovation, that at no time that mutual driveway is blocked, and I'm looking for assurance that that's going to happen.
Well, okay, so that's your only concern? I will...
So that's my only concern, and to the architect, Mr. Goldman, if I could please get a start date of this project and an end date.
Alrighty, well, let's see if he can give you that information. And,
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Goldman, you've heard the three concerns and questions?
Yes, so we're still obtaining construction costing, and at this point, it's not, I can't say when the clients intend to start and or finish the project. They are still getting costing, so it's hard to say. I do understand that the only way you can reach your garage is through the shared driveway and the mutual right-of-way, so I acknowledge that some care will need to be taken to maintain that driveway, but all of the work that we're proposing to do is on my client's property and not within the right-of-way. So I think I'll close with that.
Maybe as a goodwill gesture, once you do know, have an idea when they can start, perhaps you could let the neighbor know. And then my other question is the plan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is I have a correspondence from planning regarding a question whether you can screen the basement walkout with some landscaping. Can you?
Yes, we can, and we did submit a revised site plan indicating the plant screening. I think we submitted it on February 7th, so we're happy to do that.
Okay. Panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Clay?
Yeah, Mr. Goldman, so I'm looking at your site plan, and you're a little shy on the rear yard landscaping.
Yes, that is the case, and really we are putting a garage at the rear of the property, and I think you can see we did attempt to add as much landscaping as was possible. The shortfall on the landscaping is simply in order to admit a car to the garage.
So I'm just wondering, you've got a proposed driveway there. I appreciate that that won't contribute to your variance, but are you planning to use permeable materials there?
We can certainly commit to permeable materials for the portion that's outside of the right-of-way. The shared driveway would be subject to a conversation with the neighbor. It's currently asphalt, as I recall. But the new portion that we're going to do, yes, absolutely, it can be permeable.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay, any other questions, panel members? Okay, we're ready to make a decision on this one. Mr. Goldman, anything you want to add that's not in the submissions?
No, thank you. Please carry on.
All righty. Yeah, Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. I think the variances being requested are minor for this, and the fact that there aren't really substantive objections to it by neighbors is a very good sign. The rear addition is a very small portion, and so I think this is a supportable application. I move approval of the application subject to urban forestry condition 2, and that the front walkout, the front basement walkout be screened with plantings, and that the rear proposed driveway outside of the existing easement be constructed with permeable pavers.
Okay. So that motion with those conditions, moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay, all in favor. That carries unanimously. Item number 28, 40 Glen Edith Place. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have an arborist report prepared by Lakeshore Tree Services, a deferral request from the agent. We have email correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection. I believe they're requesting refusal of variances 3 and 4. Transportation has no concern. Forestry is asking for condition number 2. Councillor Matlow's recommending deferral. We have one form letter in support from number 16. Glen Edith in opposition from 16 and 18, so I'm not sure if 16 is opposed or in favor. And do I have the agent on the line? I'm showing no opposition speakers, huh? Yeah, okay, so Mr. Andres?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. It's Ian Andres from Goodman's. I'm here on behalf of the applicant to request.
I have a, yeah, just before, I have other names listed here. I just want to see if they're part of the applicant / owner. So I have somebody named Zach Fleischer. Is he he was an alternate, I think, if you couldn't make it?
Yes, that's right. Zach Fleischer is one of my colleagues, and I had a conflict between 3 and 4, but I've been able to make it back in the nick of time.
Okay. And then Peter Higgins, is he also part of your group?
No, I believe Mr. Higgins represents the adjacent owner at the rear, 18 Glen Edith Drive.
Okay, and Georgina Myers? Is that
she's with Mr. Wengel's office and is part of the applicant's team.
Part of your team?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so I do have, okay. So is Mr. Higgins also on the line? Okay, so Mr. Higgins is in opposition, I presume, so I will have you do a presentation, no more than 5 minutes.
Well, Madam Chair,
yeah.
I don't think Mr. Higgins is in opposition to the deferral request. Okay. So we had jointly had these discussions last week, last Wednesday, in fact. Mr. Higgins had filed a written submission raising some concerns, and we committed to deferring this application to allow more time to speak with Mr. Higgins and his client. Okay. The councillor's office was also involved, and Councillor Matlow has submitted a letter in support of the deferral. And there's some, as you noted, there's a couple of memorandum from urban forestry and one from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection, which actually has an error in it that we need to speak with staff about. So for all those reasons,
okay, so let me just confirm then with Mr. Higgins, and then we'll vote on the deferral.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Hello. Hello, Madam Chair.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. If you could just identify yourself for the record.
Beg your pardon. Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect Incorporated, 69 Douglas Drive, Toronto, Mary 4W2 Bob 2.
So are you in favor of the deferral?
Yes, I am. We represent both number 16 and number 18 Glen Edith Drive, which is down a very steep hill from the backside of 40 Glen Edith Place. We certainly wanted the deferral, and we reached out to the applicant as well as Councillor Matlow, who acquiesced and agreed to put that forward to you. And yes, I think we could do a good job with some discussions to discuss how my client's properties, which as I said are down a very steep hill, can be secured in their concern about the top of bank, which is steeply above them, construction materials as well as the pool, etc.
Okay.
So I'm in favor of the deferral.
Okay, well, I think the members all always like to see things worked out if possible. So let's take it into committee then and make a decision on the deferral. Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think this is a good proposal to defer to have further discussions and resolve any outstanding issues. I would move that this application be deferred.
Okay, and your second? Okay, motion to defer moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 29, 8 Wellesley Street West. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, an arborist report prepared by Coons Forestry Consulting, parking justification review by WSP Canada, planning rationale by Bousfields, site-specific bylaws affecting the subject property, and we have email correspondence from Transportation Services. Just one second. And Transportation has no concerns. Okay, I don't show any opposition on this one. So do I have the agent on the line?
Yep, I'm here. Mitch Gascoigne.
Okay, good afternoon. So panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? We have one variance before us, I believe. No questions? No? Okay, sir, we're ready to take it into committee to make a decision. I think it's a more technical variance than anything. Is there anything you want to add other than what's in the materials before we take it into committee?
Nope. Just here to answer questions.
Okay, let's take it into committee, panel members. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, as you said, I think this is a pretty straightforward and technical variance. There were a significant amount of accompanying material from a transportation perspective, and the Transportation Services Department is on board with this and support this variance. So for that reason, I move approval of the application with no conditions.
Okay, do you second Mr. Clay? So motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 30, 348 Glen Manor Drive. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have an arborist report prepared by Davy Resource Group, and we have one variance before us. No opposition speakers. Do I have the agent on the line?
Christina, you've been unmuted.
Christina, are you there? While you're doing that, can we go to the next one? Okay, panel members, I'm just going to hold this one down. Let's go to item 31. Okay.
Christina, are you there?
Okay, well. If you have Mr. D'Oliveira, I'll just do that one, and then you can try to get a hold of Christina. Okay, panel members, we're just going to hold 30 down for a minute. We'll go to 31, 109 Campbell Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Correspondence in support from number 105. And we have support from 103 as well as 107, which is adjacent. We have one variance before us. Mr. De Oliveira, are you there?
Good afternoon, committee. It's the first time I'm seeing you in the new year, so happy new year to all of you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike. I'm with Replacement Design, located at 911 Davenport Road, and I'm here representing 109 Campbell Avenue.
Okay, we don't need a presentation on this one. Let me see if there are any questions. Panel members, Mr. Clay?
Yeah, Mike, on the surface of it, you know, the jump in FSI seems quite dramatic. I'm assuming that that's not a real indication of the current situation, or like, is the existing FSI already over 0.69?
Yes, so the existing FSI is 1.14 with 159.58 square meters, and our proposal is for 1.23 with 172.11 square meters for a difference of in FSI 0.9 or 12.53. And our addition is fairly modest. We're looking at just slightly over 6 feet here. It's a 2-story rear addition, not even as deep as the neighbor's addition to which we're attached. And we have a support from that attached neighbor as well.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was something different than it appeared.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, Mr. De Oliveira, we're ready to take it into committee to make a decision. Anything you want to add that's not in the submissions?
No, I think that about covers everything.
Okay, thanks. All right, we're in committee. Panel members. Mr. Clay?
Sure. I think with that clarification, this is a very minor application for a very modest addition with a very small jump in FSI. I think is quite supportable. The fact that the neighbors are all on side contributes to it as well. So I think I'll just move approval of this application with no conditions.
Okay, you seconding Mr. Reed? So motion to approve moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. Back to 30. Did you get her?
No.
I'd really...
Christina, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hi, Christina. Okay, just to repeat, this is item 30, 348 Glen Manor Drive. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and an arborist report prepared by Davey Resource Group. We have one variance before us. If you can just identify yourself for the record.
Yes, Madam Chair, my name is Christina Marinos. I'm the applicant and agent on behalf of my client.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just one for the new proposed balcony at the rear. I'm wondering if there are overlook concerns on the north side that would warrant the installation of some privacy screening.
Christina?
Yes, that's no problem. Yep, we have no problem adding privacy screening.
And I'm assuming that it wouldn't make sense on the south side because of the separation between the lots, or what is your opinion on that?
Sorry, just to clarify, it's not a balcony above, by the way.
Oh, it's not?
We're just
Okay.
adding no, it's just a one-story addition.
Okay. It
Rear
looked like there
What?
were like fencing on the roof of that. Like in your
Oh,
elevation.
it's just decorative. It's just decorative.
Oh, okay.
Same thing, Peter. I thought
There's no access from the second floor.
Okay.
We're looking at the wrong presentation as well.
Right. I'm looking at the right thing on my screen, but
Okay, okay.
Okay, so it's just decorative. You don't have access from those large windows.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, Christina, we're ready to make a decision on this. Anything you want to add that's not in the materials?
No, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, panel members, we're in committee. Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a nice project. It's a modest addition that sits well with in the kind of space created by the existing house, and I have no concerns about its negative impacts. And the variance is minor, so I move approval with no conditions.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 32, 157 McLean Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, an arborist report prepared by Davy Resource Group, planning rationale letter from Elevation Architects. We have a staff report from Tree Protection and Plan Review. I believe they're asking for refusal of variance number 3. We have 4 form letters in support from the owners of 158, 160 McLean, at 20 Crown Park Road, and 23 Pine Crescent. Now, I showed 2 speakers in opposition. Okay, which one have you got? Oh, okay. Do you have the agent? Okay, thanks.
It's Maxine Shabsel, agent for the owner.
Hi, Maxine. I need you to do a presentation. I've got 1 opposition speaker. Starting the clock now, no more than 5 minutes, please.
Okay, I'll just go through the variances. Variance number 1 is for an increase in FSI. We are proposing 52 times the area of the lot. Our current FSI is only 46%, so we are already over the FSI. We're only proposing a small 2-story addition at the rear in line with an existing 2-story portion, so not much bigger than what we have. Variance number 2, the rear yard soft landscaping, we're just slightly under the allowable. So again, just a minor variance there, I think. Variance number 3, the front porch. We are proposing to replace the existing porch. The new porch is just a few inches closer to the street than the existing. You can see the porch on the neighbor to the south. We aren't any closer to the street than that porch, and I think that porch size is fairly typical for the street. We just wanted a few more inches so that we had enough clearance in front of that existing square bay to fit a chair. Variance number 4 is for the side yard setback of that porch, and we're just a few inches too close to the property line on that. And variance number 5, we're asked the garage at the back is a shared garage with the neighbor. It's quite old and dilapidated, so we're proposing to take the garage down and replace it with a single garage on our side, and I think the neighbor wants to do the same on their side. And we're just simply asking for a bit shorter length than required, so that we have enough room to juggle cars in that back portion of the lot. I think by and large, this lot is smaller than the typical lot in our area, and the house is as well. The house really hasn't been touched much. No, it hasn't had any updates in the last 50 years or so, and that's one of the reasons that we need to do these additions, just to update it and get it in keeping with the neighborhood. Yeah, so the part of the upgrades to the house is in replacing the lead water pipe that comes in from the front, and also the basic services like electrical wiring. It still has knob and tube, that sort of thing. I think that's basically it.
Okay, can you just touch on the planning or the forestry report, rather, asking for?
Yes, sorry. So we're working with forestry. It's a tree that's very close to our front steps. The tree is in decline. It's a large oak. It's in decline. It's in its older years. The tree itself is very close to the front steps, and it's heaving the walk, making the walk uneven, and it's more or less almost practically blocking access to that front porch. So we definitely want to work with urban forestry, and we have no issues with that. We're trying to figure out a solution to that will keep urban forestry happy, whether it's construction methods that we have to do, but we don't have an issue with working with urban forestry toward making them happy.
Okay, you do know that they're asking for refusal of variance number 3, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the opposition. We'll hold our questions if there are any, and then we'll come back to you.
Jason, you've been unmuted.
Hi, Jason. Can you hear me?
Jason, you've been unmuted.
Hello? Hello.
Hi, Jason.
Yes, hi. I'm sorry, the WebEx cut out when you brought me into the meeting. So, yes, sorry, Madam Chair.
No worries.
I'm actually speaking in...
Yeah, no, just your address also for the record, and just let us reset the clock too. So, okay, go ahead.
No problem at all. Okay, great. So my name is Jason Gonsalves. I'm the neighbor at 155 McLean Avenue, M4E3A5. That's the house directly to the south of 157 McLean Avenue. We share the common right-of-way driveway with 157. We've been here since 2005, as well as the garage, the common right-of-way. I'm actually speaking in support of this application. I apologize. In the email scheduling myself, I said I was speaking in support of the application, not in opposition. I would say sort of two elements. One is there is quite an old common garage, or a garage with a common wall, and we've been able to work cooperatively with the neighbors in this plan. So we certainly support that aspect of the application. That said, we've of course had conversations with them indicating that we would also need to seek committee approval for a similar sort of new single-car garage to replace the existing joint structure. And I think we've had good conversation that obviously neither party would start demolition until both parties were ready to proceed forward. And so I just wanted that in the record. And then the second thing is, so we're in full support of that. The second thing is pertaining to the tree. We've been here since 2005. The tree is in deteriorating health, and it certainly has been deteriorating over the last 10, 15 years. In addition to the fact that it's breaking up the walkway, it's also kind of on an elevated area with a sort of retaining wall leading into the driveway. The roots are now breaking through the wall, so the wall is heaved. We have had both sides issues with drainage and roots getting into the drainage system. And in the past, there have been dead branches with the tree falling and damaging part of the eaves trough, both on 155 and 157 McLean Avenue. But overall, we think this application is excellent. It keeps the character. We're very happy to support it and work with our neighbors in that. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Maxine, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think there is a rear yard soft landscaping deficiency, and I'm looking at the site plan and seeing that you're planning on resurfacing the existing driveway. Would you be open to doing that in permeable pavers on your portion?
Yes, we're open to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, anything you want to add, Maxine, before we go into committee?
Nope, that's fine, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, panel members, we're in committee. I guess your thoughts on the forestry refusal variance number 3. I mean, I'm inclined to support it just because we're trying to protect our tree canopy, but I'd like your take on it. Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. I would think the same. I mean, even though it's said that it's in, it's been said that it's in declining health, it's still a really large tree that I think has an impact on the neighborhood. So I would be inclined to go with forestry's recommendation. I think it's a small portion of the property that will have to be refined as a result. A small proportion of the project that'll have to be refined because of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. I think I'd agree. I read the arborist report, and while I appreciate that, it's probably in its latter stages of life. I don't think it is ready yet to be taken down. I think it does contribute to the streetscape, and I imagine its life expectancy isn't all that long. But for the current time, I was not really convinced by the arborist report that it was in sort of fairly unhealthy state. I think it still has some life left into it, and I think it does contribute to the streetscape. So I would agree with forestry's recommendation to refuse that variance.
Alrighty. I'll need a motion.
Forgot whose turn it was, Chair.
Well, I think it's Mr. Reed, I think.
I'll go. We got a little out of order there,
Yeah,
but
it went out of
let's
order.
reset that. That's fine.
It's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So I will put forward a motion to partially approve the application, denying variance number 3, and on the condition, approving with the condition that the rear yard portion that's labeled resurface existing driveway, which is outside of the shared right-of-way with the neighbor, be constructed with permeable pavers.
Okay, so that motion, do you second it, Mr. Clay? Yeah? Okay, so the motion then is to approve the application, all variances but refuse variance number 3, a condition that the marked area of resurfacing in the rear yard be in permeable pavers. Moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That motion carries. Item number 33, 726 Willard Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, one photograph of a tree on the property, and a tree protection plan. I believe we have 2 variances before us, and I have one speaker in interest. Do we have that person? Okay, let me just go to the agent first, and then I'll just see what the interest is here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Stephen Chi, a planner from Design Plan Services, and we have been retained by the owner of 726 Willard Avenue to present this application.
Okay, so you're speaking on behalf of the owner. I'm going to come back to you. Just give me 1 second. I show one speaker that has interest, and I'm not sure if they want to speak or if there's a specific concern. It's the adjacent neighbor. Okay, while you're calling, to the agent, panel members, do you have any questions for the agent while we're trying to get a hold of the neighbor? No? Is there anything you'd like to tell us while we're trying to get the neighbor on the line?
I just want. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that the proposal is very straightforward. It is just to enclose the existing front porch and maintaining all the existing front yard and side yard setback, maintaining the front yard condition. There are other similar enclosed front porch on Willard Avenue and also in the rest of the neighborhood. In fact, just one house, one semi-detached dwelling down at 722 and 720, both of them have their front porch enclosed.
Okay, we're still trying to get a hold of the neighbor. I'm not, yeah, okay.
Sabrina, you've been unmuted.
Ms. Campolucci? Okay. All right, so we're unable to reach her. You've tried, correct? Okay, we're unable to reach the neighbor. Is there anything else you want to add? We're ready to go into committee. There are no further questions for you.
I have no further comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Panel members, we're in committee. Mr. Clay.
Yeah, sure. Chair, I think this is, again, a very straightforward application. I think the agent's right. This neighborhood and many neighborhoods have seen an awful lot of homes who have enclosed their front porch. I don't think it's out of character or has any negative impact on the streetscape or neighbors. I think this is a supportable application. I will move approval with no conditions.
Okay, and Mr. Reed seconds, so motion to approve moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. To approve the application, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, item number 34, 72 Shudell Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, one photograph of the property, previous decision affecting the property. We have a party wall letter signed by number 74, the other half. Also, I believe the existing FSI is 0.87, if I read correctly, and we have one variance before us. I don't show any other speakers except for the agent, so do I have the agent on the line? Mr. Goldman, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Oh, sorry, technical difficulties. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Barry Goldman. I'm the architect and the agent for this application.
Okay, was I correct? The existing FSI is 0.87? I thought I read that somewhere.
I'm sorry that I'm just going through my reading glasses. I don't know why I made this print so small.
Yeah, I know it happens when we get older. What can I say?
It's true. FSI, where is it? Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Goldman? We're ready to take it into committee. Is there anything you want to add before we go into committee?
No, the application is minor and meets the 4 tests. I have nothing to add.
Okay. All right, we're in committee, panel members. Mr. Reed.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a good application. It's really restrained and sticks within the existing footprint and is only a minor increase over the existing GFA on site. So I can see no negatives to approving it. I move approval with no conditions.
Okay, so motion to approve the application moved by Mr. Reed, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Okay, this carries unanimously. All right, before we start the next time slot, I'd like to take a break. So let's come back at 10 to 5. Okay? Okay, when we come back, we'll start with item 35, which is 47 Maryland Crescent. Tell me when. Am I okay? All right. The next item is item number 35, 47 Maryland Crescent. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 2 photographs of the property, an order to comply related to the property. I only have the agent listed as a speaker, and we have, I believe, 2 variances before us. Okay? Do I have the agent on the line?
It's Eddie again. Oh, good afternoon, Chairman and Madam Chair and committee members. This is Eddie again. I'm here on behalf of the owners. As you stated, there was an order to comply, but that shed was always there. Just we drew a new house at the time, and they were thinking about removing it. But after the house was built, the shed is in really good shape, and they needed space to put their summer furniture and other articles in there. So they felt that it would be a good idea to keep the shed. We have pictures of it. You can see how it has French doors in the front and on the side, and it's in very good shape. And they would like to keep it. That's why we're here before you. It's not a new structure. It's been there for many years.
All right. Thank you. Panel members, any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Clay.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. That was a good explanation. So, but the other aspect of the order to comply had something to do with a pergola. So, what's that about?
No, they never started that. They were talking to the inspector about doing one, but they decided not to do one. That's the wood that they had there on the side, but it was never put up, and they're not going to put one up.
Okay, so that's great. The question I have though is I'm looking at your site plan. So the site plan shows the shed in the back, which is fine, and your proposed soft area, and I guess there's a walkway back there. So you're a little light on your rear yard landscaping, but on the front you've got proposed driveway, proposed garage, proposed soft. Are you proposing to do stuff to the front as well?
No, that's sorry, that we forgot that we didn't take that out when we sent this in. That was for when we did the house. We designed a new house for this property. That should have been as existing now. It's existing now. That was what we proposed when we went for the new house.
So
but it shouldn't indicate.
So were there variances for that were already approved then?
No, there was no variances for the house. The house got approved with no committee of adjustment.
Okay.
With that driveway or without the driveway?
No, with that driveway. Everything was just as is. The only reason we're here before you is because the coverage went over because we're keeping we're trying to maintain the existing shed. When we removed the shed, the coverage was fine. So we got approved for the house without committee of adjustment. There's no variance whatsoever with the house.
Like everything in the front that says proposed, that proposed word shouldn't be there, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and on the front, that should be existing. You're correct.
Okay. You forgot to take it out.
Yeah, we didn't take it out. Sorry about that.
Does that solve your question, Mr. Clay?
Yeah, I mean, I was just a little bit confused with the pergola. I assumed it was an existing shed that they just kind of made look a little nicer, but I wasn't sure what was going on in the front.
Yeah, if you look at the pergola, if you look at the back, I have pictures of the rear. There's no pergola there right now. And that's the way it's going to be maintained. I have some pictures there. They had the post to do it, but they're not going to build it any further.
Yeah, I'm with Mr. Clay. It was a bit confusing. I was looking for a pergola too and couldn't.
Yeah, I can understand why. Yeah, it's true. It was on the notice, but they never built it.
I figure maybe that's the lumber laying there for it.
Yeah.
You're also a little light in the rear landscaping. Is there anything you can do? I see you've got some pavers down there.
Yeah, those are all pavers there.
Are they standard pavers or permeable?
They're standard pavers, but there's got a lot of joints in that, so the water will go seep through.
So, okay. They're not cemented together?
No, they're not cemented together, no. It's all with sand and.
Any other questions, panel members? Okay, if there are no questions, is there anything else you want to add, Mr. Perez, before we go into committee?
No, I feel that variances are minor in nature, and I hope and they meet the 4 tests, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, all right, panel members, we're in committee. I believe you're up, Larry.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I was initially concerned about the rear landscaping. It looks like they've even pulled up some pavers in the back to put some soft in, and it's a deficit, but I think I'm okay with it given that it's an existing condition. And the clarification on both the front and the pergola makes sense. And the fact that they didn't comply with the building permit is a little different in this instance, in the sense that it wasn't a new build without permits. It was just retaining an existing one that they had previously planned on demolishing. So I think I'm fine with that. So I'm supportive of this application. I'll move approval with no conditions.
Okay, Mr. Reed second, so motion to approve, moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reed. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Next item number 36, 42 Orly Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from the agent, previous decision affecting this property, and forestry's asking for condition number 1. We have 2 variances before us. I have one speaker. Do you have that speaker? Okay, in the meantime, if we can go to the agent.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
If you can identify yourself for the record, I had one speaker. We're trying to reach them again. And they'll see if there are any questions in the meantime.
Okay, sure. This is Parisa Amiri from Marple Architects. I'm the architect and the agent on this application.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Thanks, Chair. I just had one question about the second floor balcony in the rear, and it seems like you could have some potential for overlook into your neighbors. Or would you be opposed to having privacy screening on the east and west side?
Yeah, we are okay with that. Yeah, okay. We are okay with that.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, always consider that privacy screening.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions, panel members? Have you been able to reach the opposition, or? Okay.
Hello, Lu Bao. You've been unmuted.
Chair.
Yep.
Just while we're waiting, I think variance 2 I think there might be a wording issue there. It says the altered dwelling will be located 0.4 from the rear east lot line. I think it should be side east lot line.
Okay, staff can make that change.
Okay.
Okay, so variance number 2.
Hello, Lubao. You've been unmuted.
Yes, okay.
Hi, can you just tell us your name and address for the record?
Okay, my name is Rubio Zhu, and my address is 35 West Block. West Block, yeah, East York.
Okay. Mr. Zhu, can you tell us what your concerns are, and then the agent will speak to the concerns you have? Like, do you have a are you opposed to this application? Or are you just listening?
No.
You're not. Are you just listening, or did you want to tell us something that you're not happy with the application?
Actually, I haven't read the application. I think they read the journey, so I just want to listen. Yes.
So you just want to listen and see what happens?
Yes.
Okay. So you have no concerns that you want to tell the agent about, correct?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Ms. Amiri, is there anything else that you would like to add? Mr. Zhu, who's behind you at 35, is just listening
behind
in.
over there.
I don't know if you've had any dialogue at all with him, but he doesn't appear to have any concerns. Is there anything?
No, because we are not building anything at the backyard, and it's a very fairly small addition at the back that we are proposing, although we are proposing the second floor, but we consider to not moving, like using the whole square footage that we are allowed to. And we kept it to the even 72%, which is less than 75%. And then to us, it's pretty straightforward and simple application. But the item number 2 is very technical variance, and item number 1, as I explained in my cover letter, it's because of the respecting the neighbor toward the east. That's why it's created. So if there is no question to us, it's pretty normal and minor variance and meets the floor test.
Okay, are there any other questions, panel members? If not, we'll take it into committee. Okay, we're in committee. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I agree. I think this is very straightforward, and I commend the applicant for having variances that are so minor for a sizable rebuild. I think it's showing some real restraint. So I move approval of this. I guess we'll say the amended application, or not the amended application, but amended variance number 2, just reflecting side yard setback. And with a condition that the east and west sides of the second floor rear balcony have privacy screening.
Okay, and did you get forestry number 1?
Sorry, I didn't have that, but forestry 1.
Okay, with those conditions, Mr. Reid moves approval. Are you seconding, Mr. Clay? Okay, Mr. Clay seconds. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, item number 37, 185 Ashdale Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. In our supplemental agenda last night, we got a condition from planning, and we have support from number 183, which is adjacent. I only have the agent showing as speaker. And we have 2 variances before us. Do I have the agent on the line?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of committee. My name is Randall Dickey. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Let's see if there are any questions. I don't think we need a presentation on this one. Panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Dickey? No? Sir, we're ready to take this into committee for a decision. Is there anything you want to add that's not in the submissions?
Just to very quickly state that this is a pretty minor addition. It's pretty reasoned and reasonable in terms of the variances. This will allow this smaller dated house to become fully functional and meet the needs of the residents who are going to live there. And to also state that I am aware of that planning department comment, and my client has no objection to the condition of some privacy screening on the north and south side balcony for the third floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let's take it into committee, panel members. Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. Just as Peter mentioned in the last application, this is yet another one where it's a fairly substantial addition, but the number of variances are really quite small. It's a really, all we're really looking at is a parking space variance and an FSI, a modest increase in FSI. I think it is a supportable application. I do note that there are other 2.5 and 3 stories in adjacent streets. There's no opposition from any neighbors. I think this is supportable. I'll move approval subject to planning conditions regarding the screening of the rear balcony.
Okay, so that motion's moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reid. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 38, 15 Caledonia Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, 4 photographs of trees on the property. We have email correspondence from the zoning examiner, Toronto Building, and we have a staff report from Forestry asking for condition number 2. And I do not have any opposition speakers. Do I have the agent on the line?
Mario, you've been
Yes, I'm here. Madam Chair and committee members, good afternoon. Mario Silva.
Good afternoon. Panel members, we have 2 variances before us. Do you have any questions for the agent, for Mr. Silva? Okay, Mr. Silva, we don't have any questions. We're actually ready to take this into committee. Anything you want to add before we go into committee?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay? Alrighty. All right, panel members, let's take it into committee for a decision. Mr. Reid?
Thank you, Chair. This is, the third in a row of a pretty big house that has very few variances being put forward. The depth is extremely minor, and the FSI, I think, is in line with what's happening in the area with these rebuilds, especially this close to St. Clair. It makes sense, and I think this is interesting how they approached the is semi-detached with kind of almost one unit behind the other. It's unconventional, but I think it works. I think it works in a kind of sensitive way. So I move approval of the application with the urban forestry condition number 2.
Okay, Mr. Clay seconds, so that motion's moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 39, 25 Tiago Avenue. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevation. Presentation materials from the agent. We have forestry asking for condition number 3. 29 signature petition in support signed by owners and occupants of Tiago, Cedarvale Avenues, Gardens Crescent, Glenbury Avenue, Topham Road, and Yardley Avenue. And I only have the agent as a speaker. Okay, do we have the agent on the line?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Trevor Gain. I'm the agent here on behalf of the owners.
Okay, good afternoon. Panel members, do you need a presentation on this one? No? Do you have any questions for Mr. Gain? Okay, sir, I'm not seeing any questions for you. Anything you want to add before we go into committee?
No, not at this time. I was just going to highlight the signature of support. The owners did go around and vet this through all the neighbors, and we have overwhelming support, including planning support, which abstained from any comments. So overall, we think it's a desirable application, and we seek your approval.
Okay, let's take it into committee, panel members. Mr. Clay.
Thanks, Chair. This is a small bungalow on a street which probably used to be all bungalows, but as we can see, there have been several new builds adjacent and surrounding on this street, most of which are 2 stories. So it's not surprising when we see an application like this on a street like this for a 2-story new build where there was once a bungalow. So I think while there are 8 variances, they are all, I think, relatively minor, and cumulatively they don't really represent a significant impact on the neighborhood. I think the new build, looking at the designs, will quite nicely fit in with the existing structure of homes on this street in this neighborhood. So I think it's a supportable application. I'd like to move approval of this application with no conditions.
Was there forestry number 3? I have forestry number 3.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have that. Thank you.
That's okay. Sometimes you look at one and think in another one. So, all right. So the motion is to approve. Moved by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Reid, including forestry number 3. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 40, 76 Roosevelt Road. We have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a site grading plan from the agent. We have an arborist report prepared by Elite Tree Care. We have correspondence from Heritage Planning, have correspondence from Planning asking for a condition. We have 12 form letters in support signed by residents of 69, 74, 77, 78, 80, 82, 84, and 61 Roosevelt Road, so both adjacent neighbors, 74 and 78. And then also 333, 345, and 351 Monarch Park Avenue, as well as 149A Memorial Park Avenue. We have correspondence in opposition from 357 Monarch Park Avenue. And I only show the agent as a speaker. Okay, do we have the agent on the line?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sia Zanjani, and I'm the architect and the agent for this application.
Okay, good afternoon. You're aware of the planning condition?
We are aware that the planning is requesting to tie the decision to the drawings. However, you mentioned that there's correspondence from Heritage Planning that we checked, and it's not uploaded to the AIC.
It's an email, and it basically says a tree permit application is not required to be submitted. Actually, you know what? This is something, I had it in my notes, and I'm sorry, I'm having my screen going here. This is incorrectly listed as a heritage email. It's actually it's forestry email, and so just ignore my comment about heritage.
No problem. Yeah, I think actually
I missed it in my notes, sorry.
No problem. I think that email is actually from us, just for the committee members' knowledge, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So yes,
well,
no problem.
It's about a tree permit application that's not required to be submitted for the work described in the attached arborist report. So, like I said, I actually had it in my notes, but I'm reading my screen here, so
Perfect.
It's just incorrectly labeled. So thanks for pointing that out. Panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? Looks like there are no questions, and we're ready to take it into committee for a decision. Is there anything you'd like to add before we make a decision on this one?
Nothing to add. I think they're all minor and they meet the 4 tests, so nothing further to add. Thanks.
Okay. All right, panel members, let's take it into committee. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. Looking at all the variances, they are quite minor in terms of actual amount and impact too. And I think we see that with very broad support in the neighborhood and particularly from the adjoining neighbors. I think this is a reasonable application, and I move approval subject to the community planning condition that approval be tied to the set of plans.
Okay. Mr. Clay, are you seconding? Yeah? Okay, so that motion with the planning condition moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is 41. Just give me 1 second to switch files. Okay, so the next item is 41, which is 1563 Bathurst Street. We have before us a copy of the draft plan of survey, copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a covering letter from the agent. We have an arborist report prepared by Tree and Ravine Inc., site servicing letter, and site servicing plan prepared by Watercom Engineering Inc., supplemental planning information from the agent. We have email correspondence from Transportation Services, and they don't have any concerns. We have Forestry is asking for condition number 3 on the consents, and parts 1 and 4, they're asking for condition 1 and 2, and on part 3, they're asking for condition number 1. We have correspondence in opposition from 624 Lonsdale, 627. We have from 2 different individuals at 627. We have correspondence from 620, 628, 615, 617, 626 Lonsdale, 629 Lonsdale, 243 Lonsmount Drive, 1563 Bathurst Street, and 1571 Bathurst Street, as well as 1569, 1565, 242 those 2 are Bathurst Street, and 242 Lonsmount. And we received late last night correspondence from 621 Lonsdale Road. Now, I'm showing 6 opposition speakers. Do you have them all? Okay, and you have the rest. All right, could I have the agent then?
Hi, hello. My name is Chair and members of committee. My name is Dan Krasuski, and I'm the planner representing the owners of this property.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Grzinski. I'm going to need you to do a presentation, no more than 5 minutes. We'll start the clock now.
So, well, could you just wait for 1 moment? Can you just put me on my supplemental planning information so I can use that as the basis of my, that's it, yes. Thank you again. I have 4 main points I'd like to make, and I'll go through them quickly. The first point is that this project is located in an eclectic mix of housing forms and types. Number 2, the City of Toronto planning staff have supported this application. Number 3, the neighboring houses have some of the same attributes that we're requesting today. And number 4, there is a strikingly similar group of semi-detached units within the neighborhood. And I'll go through those in detail. First of all, this neighborhood context plan shows you that we're at a signalized intersection of a major street, Bathurst and Lonsdale, in an eclectic neighborhood of single-family, semi-detached, multiple-unit single-family, commercial. We have a gas station, kitty corner, low-rise, mid-rise, and high-rise apartments, and they make up the neighborhood on both sides of Bathurst Street. This graphic also shows the units that have a less than 7.5 meter frontage, and they're dispersed throughout the neighborhood. If you go to the next page, please. My second point has to do with consultation with the city staff. We've been dealing with staff since 2018, and during our consultation, staff made it clear that they were concerned about the front yard building setbacks and the front yard required landscape areas along Bathurst and along Lonsdale Road. This was critical in their opinion to keep and respect the character of the neighborhood. Altius Architects have provided a superior design, and just to be clear, the other variances that we've requested, such as lot size, density, height, and rear yard setbacks, were discussed in detail with planning staff and deemed to be acceptable given the fact that we were maintaining the street character with the front yard setbacks and the front yard landscape areas. Next graphic, please. Next page, Lenny. So on this page, what I'm trying to show here is that we have some variances that are similar to what we're requesting. The 2 or 4 semi-detached lots to the north have a lot frontage of 6.1 meters. We are asking for 7.3, which is 3.3, which is very close to the 7.5 required. And Unit A meets the requirement. In terms of the rear yard setbacks, the existing house 628 Lonsdale has a rear yard setback of just over 4 meters. And when you take into consideration the garage, which has a 0 meter setback, the actual usable amenity space for that unit is similar to what we're proposing. If we could go to the next page, please. Okay, this graphic shows, and this is what I talked about, the strikingly similar group of semi-detached units in the neighborhood. This is just up the street at Heathdale, and they're very comparable. This is a group of 6 units that have been in the neighborhood since 1995. Next page, please. So this graphic shows you exactly what's on this site. And this, again, this has been here since 1995. The frontages for these lots are 6.78, and it has a 0 meter setback and therefore a 0 meter landscape area in the frontage. And of course, that's what we've achieved on our property because the planning staff requested it. It has a 1 meter setback to Bathurst, and the rear yards are similar to what we're proposing, a little more at 5.59. The chart below is a direct comparison of the two, our proposal versus the Heathdale, and in green is what I could actually do a comparison to comparison. Our lot frontages are bigger. Our lot areas are bigger. The Heathdale properties are around 103 square meters, and we're roughly around 130, 132. We conform to the front yard landscaping, we conform to the front yard setback, and our FSI, again, is very similar to what's on Heathdale. So what's important here is that these properties have been in the neighborhood since 1995 and have contributed to the housing mix in the neighborhood. And I think what makes our proposal an advantage over what's shown on Heathdale is that we have met the front yard landscaping and the front yard setbacks as requested by staff. And so in summary, the proposal that we presented represents what I would consider is to be gentle intensification that helps to add to the housing mix and addresses the critical shortages of supply. The variances are appropriate and consistent with the within the eclectic neighborhood context and abutting properties. In addition, there's an example since 1995 on Heathdale that provides evidence that the development of Bathurst Street for 2 pairs of semi-detached dwellings is appropriate. We have an outstanding architectural design by Altius Architects that's provided the landscaping, and it's also provided the setbacks. We have an engineering.
You're at 5.5 minutes. Are you wrapping up?
I'm wrapping up, yes.
Okay.
We have engineering plans prepared by a professional engineer. We have an arborist report by a professional arborist. We're at a signalized intersection, and the City of Toronto Transportation Services have indicated they have no objections to the driveways or sidewalks as shown on the plan. We have existing infrastructure that we're leveraging. In my opinion, this proposal meets the Section 53 and Section 45 of the Planning Act. It represents good planning.
Okay, you're at 6 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off now.
That's fine, thank you.
All right. If I could go to the first speaker, please.
Shahram, you've been unmuted.
Good evening, committee members and the neighbors. Melissa is going to talk behalf of all of us, and Gray as well. And if it's at the end, if there's anything I can add, I will add after them, if you don't mind.
Well, sir, the way the process works is that you have 5 minutes to speak, and you don't have an opportunity to come back. That's how the committee hearings go. So whatever
Okay,
it is
let
that
me.
and also before you continue, can you just state your full name and address, please, for the record?
My name is Sharam Khalilzadeh, 626 Lonsdale Road. My concern about this development plan is making a huge impact in the neighborhood. The Lonsdale Road is only 450 foot long, and this plan adding 4 more units, houses to this small community, which is a huge impact. The Mr. Planner didn't tell us the zoning of the Heathdale development. The zoning is different than what we have on this property, I believe, and that is not a good comparison. And also, there is the facade of the house is not respecting the neighborhood, and it's not good enough. The planners, the owners, the architect never contacted us before this committee, and we never met them. So I think that's all my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the speaker panel members? Okay, thank you very much, sir. Can I have the next speaker, please?
Melissa and Peter, you've been unmuted.
Today, Melissa Nemec.
Hi, Melissa, are you speaking on behalf of both yourself and Peter?
Yes, I am.
Alrighty, I just need you to state your full name and address, and then you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. It's Melissa Nemec, and I live at 1565 Bathurst Street, Toronto, M5P3H8.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, committee and Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak today. I'd like to express my objection and that of my neighbors to this proposal, the consent to sever this one lot into 4 undersized lots, and the many, many variances, 8 for each of those one lots, for a total of 32 variances. I live and work and play here in Toronto, and I want to stay in this space. And when I looked through this plan and the list of variances, it was obvious that holistically, there's nothing minor about this proposal. And the framing and the language that's being used and everything feels a little bit sneaky, and especially with Mr. Dan Krasinski sending in his update on February 8th, just after 1:30, to compare our homes and this proposal that he's put together to those of Heathdale. Heathdale is a different zone altogether. It is an M multi-use zoning, and those are the bylaws that development needs to follow. We live here in an R zoning, residential zoning, R2. And it's wild to think that a family home here is going to be split up into 4. When I applied those 4 tests, it's obvious that these variances should not be granted. It doesn't meet the intent of the official plan. It's not affordable. It doesn't support the needs of the neighborhood, and the physical character of the neighborhood is being ignored. The next point, it doesn't meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. This is a residential bylaw, not mixed use, and it shouldn't be considered as such. Our neighborhood is the east side of Bathurst Street, South Forest Hill, not Humewood, which is the west side, which is multiple mixed use. And that's where you have a lot of 4-story, 5-story apartments and many other kinds of combinations. Is it desirable? No. How is this appropriate? You've got these 4 lots that are too small. They're undersized to the bylaw. There's an easy way to fix this, but it hasn't even been considered. Is this minor? No. There's 32 variants based on these 4 lots. That's nuts. So I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper now, but it's just really unsettling that we haven't been consulted, and there's been no discussion by anyone that's been developing this to any of the neighbors in the neighborhood. Nothing. I received a quick little message the week before we got the full set of documentation from the City of Toronto, from this group. This impacts our neighborhood significantly. Our neighborhood is mostly single family homes, and they're mostly 2 stories. There's a couple of exceptions here and there, but the density of our lots is really what's at stake here, especially I'm being the neighbor just directly north of this development. It's significant for me. The height of these homes that are supposed to be built is 9.96 meters, which is significantly more than the bylaw itself allows. And, instead of a natural setback of 7.5 meters, it's 4.25 meters. There's nothing between that. You can't compare this chart that's based on Heathdale, which is an M zoning. It's not the same zoning. Heathdale is not the same zoning as our neighborhood.
You're almost at 5 minutes, so I'm going to need you to start wrapping up.
I think you need to look at the significance of the trees in the backyard. They were not well represented by the arborist report. The magnolia is oversized, and it's not properly represented. We did our own measurements, and we know that. We did our own shadow study, and we're going to be in complete darkness for most of the day, from probably about noon onwards at any time of the year. And the grade itself of the lot too is significantly higher.
Melissa, I'm sorry, but you're over 5.5 minutes, so I'm going to have to go to the next speaker.
Yeah, I just think it's really sneaky that someone can get in at their submission at February 8th at 1:30, and then we have to address it. That's not fair.
Okay, I don't know when it was submitted. I know
it's right on the top.
Planning follows a process, so
yes,
we can't force applicants to talk to the community. We always encourage it. But other than that, we just deal with the process here and the variances. Okay, I'm going to see if there are any questions for you, panel members. Mr. Clay has a question for you, Melissa.
I do. Thank you. I'm just looking at the lot location map, and the lot that is being proposed for redevelopment, it extends, I guess, right to about the back of your house, and then you have a backyard It
Yes.
looks like it's behind 628.
Yes.
So that wall that's facing that lot of your house, does it have windows on it?
Yeah, I have 3 windows. I have a beautiful a picture window on the main floor, and I have another one above as well.
That's looking out into what is now, I guess, the backyard of.
Yes, the magnolia
1560.
tree. I look directly out into the backyard, and it's lovely. The owner before, had lived in that home for 60 years, and I had the pleasure of meeting them, and they were my neighbor for the first, I think, 3 years of our time here. I developed a friendship with them, and that magnolia was a Mother's Day gift to the previous owner of that home, and has been there ever since.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
it touches the garage and the property line, the canopy of that tree. It's
Okay.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Melissa. You got the next speaker?
Thomas, you've been unmuted.
Hello. Hello to the chair, members of the committee. My name is Thomas Nichols. I am a tenant at 1563 Bathurst, M5P 3H8. And I don't have too much to add myself, but I would just like to echo the previous concerns about the units. I think they don't contribute to the character of the neighborhood. I think they detract from it by destroying a beautiful tree, which is a huge part of the canopy of the street and a huge part of the character of the neighborhood. I don't think it fits with the rest of the units, and I don't think the neighborhood is benefiting from it in any major way. And I don't think the way that the process was carried out was fair to the tenants of the unit and the Ross family, or to the rest of the members of the neighborhood. I also have big doubts that this will be good for traffic on the street, on the extremely busy Bathurst Street. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Gary, you've been unmuted.
Hi, Gary? Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Can I just ask you to state your name and your address for the record? I don't need your postal code, just the street address. is
Okay.
fine.
Sure. I'm Gary Davis, and I reside at 242 Lonsmount. And I prepared a PowerPoint, but it doesn't appear that the share button's active. So let me just go through it. The various files, the B files and all the A files, were received by us and most of the neighbors. And you'll find in the file, members of the committee and Madam Chair, that there's approximately 16 letters of objection in the file. As Melissa said, this is Forest Hill South, and this consent to sever a marginally larger lot into 4 postage stamp size lots is pure fiction. It's the planner referenced 628 Lonsdale, and it's a small house, but of the 17 houses that are on Lonsdale, there's one that has a substandard size back rear yard. So something that's 5 decades old doesn't really count in this day and age. This aggressive severing is not, in creating these postage size lots, they're primarily the size of all of our backyards. Our land, and that's part of what makes this part of Forest Hill South livable, is that there's areas to commune with nature. There's areas to talk to your neighbors in the front yard. And it does not, it's my opinion that the aggressive severing of one lot into 4 doesn't respect the true fabric or the character of the entire Forest Hill South neighborhood. If I look at it kind of puzzles me as to why this is before the Committee of Adjustment, because by definition, minor variances are used for small changes to buildings and setbacks of parking requirements. This application completely fails in regards to this definition. The issues, as has been previously said, density is an issue. Excess variances and encroachment. Buzz phrases like, as you probably read in my letter, and I hope you've read all of the letters and understood the gravity of that this conveys by the neighbors. I walk a lot, and I would wonder, Bathurst, Claxton, and Lonsdale are regularly plagued by collisions, and the fact that people line up 7 cars deep Monday afternoon to be able to make the light, they don't make it if somebody walks across the crosswalk. The height, as Melissa said, is aggressive. The contextual fit with the neighborhood, it was a desperate attempt to be something that is just not capable of doing, and it fails. These minor variances, it fails to. If you need that many minor variances to make your thing work, there's probably something wrong with the original concept. So, Melissa alluded to it, but the rear yard setback should be 7.5 meters. The 4 meter setback is aggressive enough. The bay windows reduce that setback to 3.7 meters. That's 12 feet. 12 feet away from Melissa's house is going to be a 30-foot high wall. Not at all neighborly. And again, the traffic is regularly backed up on Sundays. Any day of the week, you can go to that intersection and see it. There's a privacy fail where the city has, as you probably see in many cases, the laneway suites require a 40-degree line for overlook. That cuts right through the middle of this proposed development. The overshadowing. I plotted a diagram for today's date, 4:30 p.m. It's a little later, but okay. The sun is above the horizon at an angle of 12 degrees. It's oriented at 239 degrees, and it completely shadows 1565, 1567, 1569, and 1571 Bathurst. So there's a massive failure.
Mr. Davis, you're coming up to 5 minutes. Can you wrap up?
Okay,
please?
I'll wrap it up. Okay, the certification of the arborist. I found, and I called them and found it's a non-governmental organization. It grants the use if you pay a fee. So let's address the large street tree that's in the middle of the driveway. They want to remove it. It's a blue spruce, and it's a notable feature. As Melissa said, the multi-stem magnolia has been misrepresented in the architect's and the arborist drawings, and if you need only to go by the site to see that it's about 95 centimeters in diameter. So the issues are density, setback, overshadowing, privacy, and height. All of them are fails. The proposed.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to cut you off now.
Okay.
You're almost at 6 minutes.
One last thing. The references to the RM district on Heathdale or the houses that have been subsequently knocked down on Raglan are just noise. The committee doesn't need to waste their time listening to noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any questions? Mr. Clay has a question for you.
A quick question, Mr. Davis. When you started, I think I heard you say that you live on Lon's Mouth?
Mount. LONSMOUNT.
I understand. Thank you. So you're kind of on an adjacent street. Does this proposal actually directly affect you, or are you just reflecting more generic concerns?
You know, Mr. Clay, that's a very good question. If this establishes a precedent, there are a number of properties in and around the general neighborhood where it could easily be used by someone else to sever lots in an inappropriate way and increase density. So my interest is, we had one next door to us a few years ago, and I don't want to see this as a precedent for severing in a way that diminishes the character of Forest Hill South and pretends to give character or to be neighborly. Again,
Okay, so I don't mean to cut you off, sir. I apologize, but I just wanted to confirm that this actual development, your concern is more precedent, but this one doesn't actually directly affect you at this point.
I'll be able to see it. I'll be able to see it when I look out from my rear garden. If it gets to be, if it is, I don't know. I have no idea anymore if it's 8.5 meters, 9.9 meters, or 10.3, which is what the architect's drawings show. So if it's 10.3, I'll see it. So
Okay.
will it affect? Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Davis.
You're welcome.
Have you got Mr. Ross? Yeah.
Benjamin, you've been unmuted.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thanks for having me.
Hi. Okay, we're going to start the clock now, and you have 5 minutes. If you could just, did you state your address? I don't think.
No, I have not. My name is Ben Ross, and my address is 630 Lonsdale, or also 1563 Bathurst Street. It's the same address, so I'm a resident of the property in question.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a few concerns. I mean, I echo all the sentiments of my neighbors who've done a lot of work, and thanks to them for doing that. My main concern is around the culture and diversity of the neighborhood. This area north of St. Clair has been an affordable enclave for many years. People have been able to live here on a middle-class income or a lower middle-class income and know that they're going to find a place that's affordable, that has a bit higher square footage than right downtown, and that have larger lots. This is part of what makes this neighborhood special and really what makes it diverse. And over time, I've just been dismayed to see the prices go up and renovations happen. This is actually my second renovation. So I've had to relocate my family more than once. Middle and lower class families need a place to live too. It really changes the makeup of the neighborhood when, for no reason other than, wanting to maximize someone's investment, families are forced to uproot and often leave the neighborhood. If this goes through, it will not only be difficult to find affordable housing, but housing that's large enough to accommodate my family. We are a family of 6. We could maybe fit into 2 of the proposed units, buildings, and we'd probably need 3. If it does go through, chances are good we'll be priced out of the neighborhood. Our kids who attend elementary school in the neighborhood will be forced to relocate, and it will just be upheaval for our family. The second thing I wanted to mention was the arborist report. I did see several problems with the arborist report. I felt that it misrepresented the state of the property, including the trees and the property in general. 2 trees were misidentified. There's an apricot tree that's closer to Lonsdale that was misrepresented as a pear tree, and a Colorado spruce that was misrepresented as a beech tree. All the trees are in better condition than stated. In fact, just in the spring, both the owner and I paid together to care for the magnolia and the apricot tree. And the arborist who attended the property said that they were both in good shape. Particularly the magnolia tree, as other people have said, it's really been an honor to care for this tree. It's enormous. It's roughly 70 years old. The arborist that I spoke with said it's among the oldest, largest, and most beautiful magnolia trees in the city. It really is a neighborhood attraction. People stop and talk. It's an opportunity to build community, to connect with neighbors, and people look forward to it blooming all year. It really would be a shame to see that tree go. The only problem with the tree, the arborist report mentions a wound. It has been improperly cared for in the past. And so there is a wound on the tree, but it's in good overall shape, and it's enormous. Lastly, I just want to talk about the traffic. As other people have said, the traffic is, people really speed down Lonsdale trying to make the light at Bathurst. And it really makes it unsafe for families. Increasing the density in this area and having people pulling out of the driveway, even pulling out of our driveway, is often, you have to be so careful because people are speeding along even despite the speed bumps. So adding 4 driveways there and 4 garages to me seems like a very bad idea. I'll end there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ross? No? Okay, thank you very much. Were you able to get the other speaker or just no? Okay. Can I have the agent back then?
Hi.
Hi. So we'll start the clock now. If you have 5 minutes to speak to the issues
Sure.
raised. Okay.
Okay. Can you just bring me back to page 3 of my supplemental information?
Yep, sure. We'll do that
Thank you.
first before starting the clock.
Yes, thanks. Just that's
one?
good.
Okay.
Yes, thanks. And I just want to, for the committee's sake, point you towards the policy of the official plan. And this is 4.1.5. And it's important because it's really one of the main reasons why we felt this was appropriate. And it states that lots fronting onto a major street, and this is in my planning opinion, my original letter. It says lots fronting onto a major street and flanking lots to the depth of the fronting lots, which essentially means this lot, the fronting lots would be the semi-detached. So if you go on this lot all the way back to including probably 628, those are the flanking lots. It says these lots are often situated in geographic neighborhoods distinguishable from those lots, those located in the interior of the neighborhood due to characteristics such as different lot configurations, better access to transit, adjacency to development with varying heights, massing and scale, and or direct exposure to greater volumes of traffic on adjacent and nearby streets. In those neighborhoods, and this is what we're talking about right here, this particular property, because it's a flanking lot, such factors may be taken into account in consideration of a more intense form of development. So I think we have to be clear that we're not putting this in the middle of the neighborhood. We're putting this on a signalized major street intersection of Bathurst and Lonsdale. And I know that some of the residents have mentioned traffic, but we have traffic comment that said they have no concerns with the layout as proposed. And just the other thing I just wanted to mention, when we look at the character of the neighborhood, it's not, we don't look at it from a zoning standpoint. We look at what's in the character, what's in the neighborhood. And unfortunately, for the residents in this case, Heathdale is in the neighborhood, and Heathdale does provide additional housing. It provides another housing form, and it works very well, and it's worked well in this neighborhood since 1995. And we have provided a design here that improves on the Heathdale houses because it provides the front yard landscaping and the front yard setbacks that was so important to the planning staff and was part of their reasons for supporting this application. Thank you.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions for the agent? No? Mr. Clay, do you have any questions? No? Okay. All right, we'll take it into committee then. Comments? Mr. Clay.
Chair, I'm happy to start. I imagine both you and Peter are probably going to weigh in as well. First of all, thank you for everyone who called in and shared your perspective. And we also received a great deal of correspondence on this application. So thank you to everyone who wrote in. I understand the concerns that people are raising, with a couple of exceptions. The majority of them are all about character and quality of life, and the introduction of this type of housing into or on the edge of an existing neighborhood is considered by some to be inappropriate. I'm on that matter. I'm of the view that this is a good example of introducing gentle density on the periphery of an existing and established neighborhood, but also along a thoroughfare and an avenue that is characterized not exclusively, but certainly extensively by lots of 3, 4, 5-story walk-ups and apartment buildings. And similarly, even over on Claxton, there are 3-story walk-ups. I take the agent's characterization that this is, in fact, a very eclectic neighborhood with a mix, a very broad range and mix of housing types and stock. The city's stated objective, I think, in these instances is to try and introduce gentle density into existing established neighborhoods. In my view, this is an appropriate development because it does that, but it does it on the periphery in a way that I think is, I'm sure some of the people listening would disagree, but I do think it's sympathetic to the surrounding area. The lot sizes and the lot fabric I thought were reasonable. They're only a half a meter short of what's as of right. The owner of 1565, I think it is, the property adjacent to on Bathurst, we had a number of very legitimate concerns. But I do note that the proposal before us also has rear yard setbacks. While not conforming to the bylaw, those setbacks are more generous than the current structure that is already there. The current building is almost right up to the lot line, so there is virtually no space in between the two houses right now. So there would be a little bit more breathing space with the new configuration than there is now. And similarly, that individual's backyard isn't really affected by this development because their backyard is in behind the next door neighbor. This is an area that is well serviced by transit, well serviced by amenities, and in my view, while some might argue that there are a lot of variances, those variances, I think, are largely a function of the small lot size and trying to get a reasonable dwelling or 2 semi-dwellings into small lot fabric. I'd also note that city staff did not raise any concerns, I think in part because this does fit their overall official plan objectives for introducing gentle density into existing neighborhoods, and transportation has not raised any concerns. So long-winded, but I think, and I acknowledge everyone's concern, but I think in this instance, in a broader context, I see this as an appropriate development.
Okay, Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Larry. I agree with everything that Larry said, and honestly have nothing additional to add. I think this is the evolution of a neighborhood, and it's on Bathurst. So I think this is appropriate.
Okay, I support also everything that Larry has said. I'm very sympathetic to the residents' concerns. It's always difficult when you see change, but this is a flanking lot on Bathurst, which is a very busy street, and these are the spots that the city is looking for intensification on. I actually think the design is a sensitive design, and I do support this application. I do want to thank everybody for bringing their concerns forward, and I will now pass it over to my members for a motion.
Chair, I'm happy to. I'll take this one. I'll move approval of this application. Do we do the severances and the variances together?
I think we can do them all together. The forestry conditions and perhaps staff can weigh in if I make a mistake here. So forestry 3 is on the consent. Part 1 has forestry 1 and 2. Part 2 has forestry 1, and part 4 has forestry 1 and 2. Is that correct? And then standard consent and the engineering report dated August 25th. Okay,
Yep.
those are all the conditions then.
Yep, that's what I had too.
Okay, so you want to move approval with all those conditions, Mr.
Yes.
Craig? And are you seconding, Mr. Reed? All in favor? Okay, that carries and the application's been approved with those conditions. Okay, our final application today, item number 42, 321 Westlake Avenue. We have before us a copy of the minutes from the October 12th public hearing, copy of the draft plan of survey, copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter from the agent. We have an arborist report and tree preservation plan prepared by Greenprint Consulting Arborists. In our supplemental agenda, we received email correspondence from planning. They're giving a condition. Staff report from forestry. They're asking for condition 2 and 3 on parts 3 and 1. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. And what else do we have here? We have correspondence in opposition from number 17 Westlake Crescent, as well as 7 Westlake Crescent. I am showing 1 speaker in opposition. Okay. You got the agent? Okay.
Yes, good evening. It's evening now. Good evening, Madam Chair. It's Amber Stewart, and I'm the lawyer for the owners. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Because we have 1 opposition speaker, can you do a presentation no more than 5 minutes, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you. And just before I start, I think the 2 things that I'd like to refer to on the screen are my letter dated February 8th, 2022. And then secondly, there is a graphic that I submitted in October of 2022, and it's labeled supporting material.
Which one do you want first? Because I don't.
The letter from February 8th, I think.
Okay.
Thank you. First, I'll just give you a very quick overview of the application. This is a through lot which has frontage on Westlake Avenue and dual frontage on the street to the rear at Westlake Crescent. You may be familiar with this because there was an application on the lot to the northwest, right next door at 323 Westlake, which was virtually identical in terms of a lot severance of 1 into 3. Which was approved in May of 2022. So this application was before the committee in October of 2022, and it was deferred due to an objection report from Urban Forestry. And that report recommended refusal due to the removal of 1 tree in the rear yard, which is a silver maple. And we were asked by the committee to consider whether or not that tree could be preserved with the development. So the first letter that I've prepared has summarized the consultation we've gone through since that time, and just very briefly, that is the second letter. If we could go to the February one of this year, it's okay. If you can't pull it up, I can just describe it for you.
When was it submitted? Because it
was submitted February 8th. It's dated received February 9th.
Maybe there's a covering letter there. Yeah, it's in the supplemental. Okay, I think we found it.
Okay, that's great. So the reason I wanted to pull it up, just on the first page, I've included just a snapshot of the site plan that shows where that tree is located. And as you can see, it's located right in the footprint of the house on 321A. These houses are already very modest. They are both around 1,250 square feet and only 11.13 meters in length. So due to the size of that tree protection zone, it was simply not feasible to build that house on that lot while retaining that tree. So my clients, working with the councillor who facilitated a meeting with Urban Forestry, worked with Urban Forestry, and what they've agreed to do is plant on the subject site, so between the 3 lots, a total of 5 trees which are city approved, and 19 landscape trees which don't fall into the city approved category, but they are pyramidal English oak, so they are tall growing deciduous trees. And that's on the next page of that letter. You'll see a screenshot of that site plan, the landscape plan. There we go. Thank you. And so that's 19 trees plus 5 city approved trees, 24 in total on this site. And they've actually worked with the owner to the north as well, and agreed to plant a similar landscape plan on that with, in fact, 6 city approved trees there and another 19 of the landscape plantings. So on that basis, Urban Forestry has agreed to this replanting plan, and they have issued, I'm going to forget the name of the formal document and what it's called, but it's essentially, it's the undertaking and release. So it essentially secures the planting of these trees on the site. And as you've just mentioned, Urban Forestry has issued an updated memorandum which imposes only standard conditions of approval. So the Urban Forestry objection has been resolved. With respect to city planning supported this application from the outset. And at this point, I would ask if we could go to that graphic from October. And I think that really summarizes the nature of the basis for supporting this application. So there's that covering letter, and then there was a one-page graphic. But let's see, I don't see it in your table of contents here. It's called supporting material. But in any event, perhaps I'll just go through. I know I'm already getting close to my 5 minutes. Oh, yep, there it is. That's the one. So what I think this graphic really illustrates is how severances have occurred in this particular block. It's an opportunity to sever one lot into 3 lots where both street frontages will have dwellings that face and front the street. And that is exactly what is intended by the official plan and the public realm and urban design policies, to essentially fill in the gaps with, if I could echo some of the comments that were made earlier, with gentle intensification. The lots do not require frontage variances. So from a streetscape perspective, the lots will appear to be totally compliant. And I think what you can see in this graphic as well is where there has been a severance of one lot into 2. What has happened is that one of the streets benefits from having those facade frontages, while the other street suffers from having rear detached parking or rear detached garages. So this is, yes.
You're at 5.5 minutes. Can you please wrap up? We'll have you back anyway.
I'll wrap up. I'll simply wrap up by saying that, again, this application is virtually identical to the one that was approved next door in May. And in my covering letter that you flipped to earlier, there is a detailed summary of all of the variances, which indicates that they are totally within the range of what's been approved through severance and simple minor variance redevelopment applications in this neighborhood. So in our view, it's supportable, and I'll respond to any questions.
Okay, we're going to hold questions till we hear from the opposition.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Hello.
Hi, is this Ms. Wilmot?
Hello.
Hi.
It is, and I should note that none of these documents, which are cited by the lawyer for the developer, were made available to me, nor has the original or the new application been made available to me. But anyways, to go to the merits, I am at 7 Westlake Crescent. This is a very narrow street, and the houses were built, most of the houses were built in 1955. It basically has 2 crescents, which makes the street quite dangerous as far as when people illegally park on the street, which, because of these severance applications and severance applications over on Hampstead, and the fact that the police do not patrol little crescents, there is basically people parking on my street from Hampstead and from several streets over, trying to avoid paying for parking, and they don't have parking on their lots or their lots are filled up already by cars. So there is street parking allowed on Hampstead. Nobody parks there. They park on my street, which makes it very, very difficult for people on my street, particularly people like me with mobility problems. There's only one sidewalk on the street. There is no sidewalk in front of a number of houses on the street, I guess in anticipation of there only being a very limited number of cars because of the fact that the street was built mainly in 1955. As far as the allegation is that there are a number of severances on the street, I note that a lot of these severances occurred during the pandemic, and it was a very, very similar situation. As far as any that have driveways that come onto Westlake Crescent, like 317, that property should have been covered by res judicata. It was litigated. I was there in front of the Ontario Municipal Board in 1989. There has been no change in circumstance since 1989 to justify having that severance go through without proper opportunity to reply or respond to the application. Although I was served with that application, I did not have really a full opportunity to reply to the submissions that were made, nor was I given the opportunity to submit the previous tribunal decision, which should have been binding. As far as the other two new developments, they all have driveways that go on to Westlake Avenue, and there are two houses each. And both of the, basically there is sufficient parking on those driveways for a number of cars. So there should be no parking problems from those two new houses. As far as suddenly planting new trees, I don't think of 19 very small trees. We don't know, what size these trees are going to be, but they're going to be very, very small if they're planted. It's going to make up for one huge silver maple that's going to have to be killed. And there was another tree that was referred to in the original arborist report, which is, past the size in which it should be cut down, and that one's going to be affected as well.
Ms. Wilmot,
so it affects...
Ms. Wilmot,
yes?
You're coming up to 5 minutes. Can you wrap up, please?
Okay, so my submissions go to the fact that there are a number of disabled old people on the street, including me, whose interests are going to be severely affected by this new development with two new houses with only space for two cars on a street which is already overburdened with cars from neighboring areas and which is not near any major transit hub. There is a bus stop that's near there, but it's very difficult to navigate to that bus stop when there's no sidewalk. And actually, there are people who
okay, Ms.
now...
Ms.
Okay.
Wilmot, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off here. Panel members, do you have any questions for Ms. Wilmot? No? Okay, thank you very much for your input. Ms. Stewart, can you please speak to the issues raised?
Yes, I can. Thank you. So I think the first thing that I'll comment on is certainly the severances that have been approved in this neighborhood and on this street It's not simply over the pandemic. Just based on the committee search over the approximately 10-year period, there have been severances that have been approved steadily over that period of time where they can be accommodated, which, there are a few opportunities, but where they can be accommodated, they have been approved gradually and over time. With respect to the comment about number 317 and a decision from 1989, I respectfully disagree with the statement that things have not changed. I think the planning policy and legislative landscape has changed significantly over that period of time, including with respect to the importance of the housing crisis that we are facing and the importance of facilitating this type of intensification where it can be accommodated. With respect to the parking, that's another change that has occurred, as I'm sure the committee is aware, that the City of Toronto has recently removed on-site parking requirements for residential properties except for visitor parking. But that's also an aside point because both of these dwellings will provide a parking space within an integral garage. So it's either a driveway that leads to rear yard parking for the Westlake Avenue facing property, or it's driveways that lead to integrated parking for the Westlake Crescent facing property. So either way, there's no effect on on-street parking. With respect to the comment about the trees, there is in the arborist report a second tree that has been inventoried, but that tree is slated for preservation. There's no encroachment into the tree protection zone of that tree. So I think in summary, I just want to restate that this is an application that has been supported by urban forestry, supported by city planning, supported by ECS, and frankly, supported by the local councillor. So in our view, this is an opportunity to improve the streetscape, to provide for additional housing units, and frankly, over time, and well, immediately and over time, to increase the urban forest canopy on this site and on the site next door, because I don't see too many applications myself where owners are prepared to secure the planting of 24 trees on a single property. So subject to any questions you have, I think I've addressed all of the comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, panel members? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Let's take it into committee then. Mr. Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to start. I think this is the third severance on Westlake Avenue and Crescent that I've heard, and I've been supportive of all of them. I understand the neighbors' concerns and read all the letters again. It is hard when what is a yard turns into two houses, but I think what's being proposed, and especially if we look at the variances themselves, they're pretty small variances that are being requested to enable the construction of two new homes. And the fact that community planning is on side, and seeing the photos of the houses, the existing houses now that are fronting onto Westlake Crescent, I think they fit in, and I think they actually make Westlake Crescent a more pleasant street to be on. It feels more like a street rather than houses and then garages or fences on the other side. I think it feels complete and more urban. So I'm going to be supporting this. I really appreciate. I'm sad to see the large tree go, but I think the solution that is being reached with urban forestry is a good one. I think it's a good compromise that can see some gentle intensification on this street, as well as contributing back to the tree canopy. So I'll support it.
Okay. Mr. Clay.
Peter, I was on the panel that heard this in the fall, that deferred it to see if there was any opportunity to reconfigure, and I'm pleased to see that attempts were made to do that. And I guess in this instance, there really wasn't a way in which that maple could be preserved. But I too, heartened by the addition of trees and some plantings in and around this area that I think will help. I mean, I appreciate that it'll take a while for it to reach the the state of the maple, but we were trying, I think, in the fall to respect what forestry was recommending and trying to at least give the applicant an opportunity to address those concerns. So I'm pleased to see that discussions and those discussions have happened, and we've come back with a reasonable understanding and application. So I agree with Peter.
Okay, I agree with both of my colleagues. I've been to this this site a number of times, and I agree that I think it would actually look better with the new homes on that street rather than having the big gap there, because there has been development on the street. So I do think that this is a good fit, and that it fits with the intention of what the city is envisioning on how neighborhoods evolve and densify. So I will be supporting this application, and I do thank the speaker for her comments. However, I do believe that this meets the 4 tests, this application. Okay. Mr. Reid.
I'm happy to move a motion for approval of the consent to sever and the minor variances, and that's subject to community planning conditions for tying it to plans and having permeable pavers on the driveways, and the development engineering conditions, and urban forestry. That's condition 2, and then condition 3 2 times, if I'm right.
Yeah, it's on parts 3 and 1.
Okay, and I think I've got it all.
Yep, you do. Okay, so that motion with the conditions outlined by Mr. Reid, moved by Mr. Reid, seconded by Mr. Clay. All in favor? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. The application's been approved with those conditions. And the committee stands adjourned at 6:21. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
You as
Madam
well,
Chair
Chair.
and panel members. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Sabrina and staff, and thanks, guys. We were small but mighty today.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure. Okay, bye. You too.